Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee and Football presented by Rick Vavro and Austin Underground. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined each and every day by Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton. Tell us where you're checking in from this morning. Tell us what you think about yesterday's game. We'll get to all your questions here in a little bit. I also want to give a big shout out to Duck Camp, the good folks at Duck Camp, for sponsoring throughout Texas college football playoff run. So thank you to them as well. And let's get into y'all's thoughts as we've had time to soak it in, kind of think about it a little bit, roll it around the brain. We'll start with you, Jerry. What's your thoughts on yesterday's game?
Well, I think the first and foremost is Texas season continued, and it could have ended in an ugly fashion. And there are 2 straight years in a college football semifinal. That is big for this program because the difference between winning and losing that game at the end of the day, just think about y'all's thoughts right now in the chat. Think about what would be talked about the entire offseason if that game had gone the other way. Texas wins that game, and that's huge for the program as Sark continues to work to build this program to the level he ultimately wants to get it at. So hats off to Texas. Look, I thought this was we kind of talked about this starting with the A&M game. It was going to be like Quinn Ewers' legacy from here on out. How is he going to be ultimately remembered at the University of Texas? Because I think, look, he's led Texas to 2 straight playoffs. There's been a lot of great. He's helped Sark rebuild Texas, right? But just think from the end of the Washington game last year, what was all the talk about leading into the season? Then he's had his ups and downs in the season, got injured, played unbelievable against Michigan, didn't play well in some stretches, especially coming off the injury. But then A&M had the 2 turnovers, but won the game. SEC championship game had moments good early, then not so good. Good game against Clemson, 500 yards, 38 points, all that. But then in this game, offense really, after the first drive, offense really struggled. 4 yards in the second quarter, probably about similar in the third. I haven't looked up the total number of yards in the third. And then have the interception with 5 minutes to go. Should the play have been called or not? We can all discuss all that. But the interception, and they have to bounce back then after Arizona State's comeback and win that game. I thought that was a defining 2 series for Quinn in his time at Texas. And I'm happy for Quinn, man, because, look, we grade these guys. Sometimes it's an A, sometimes it's a C, right? Sometimes it's a B. I mean, we give our opinions. But you want to see all these guys have success, man. And so that was great to see Quinn have that success. And Arizona State, Sam Levitt, unbelievable effort. Cam Scatterbo, unbelievable effort. Unbelievable effort, man. That guy, I'm not sure the last time I was thinking about it, last time you saw one guy, just the appearance of giving that much all-out effort. So hat tip to him, man. That was a hellacious effort by an athlete.
You want to know how I'm feeling?
Yeah, I was about to ask.
I'm feeling a hell of a lot better after a win than a loss. That's what I woke up this morning thinking to myself. Actually, I was like, how would I feel this morning if it were a loss yesterday? And I really am kind of giddy a little bit this morning. I'll tell you why. Throw away, and I wrote this morning on Texas Football. Throw away all your preconceptions about this game. Texas should win big. Texas is a serious, is a better athlete, yada, yada. Throw all of that away. What we saw yesterday was a whale of a football game. It was back and forth. There was a guy that looks like a Marvel superhero playing running back. I mean, he looks like he's chiseled from granite. There was David versus Goliath. There was a doinked field goal. I mean, that you could, if that would have been a made-for-TV movie, you wouldn't have believed that field goal hit the upright. And then to be on the brink of defeat, 4th and 13, and score a touchdown, and then come back the very next play and score a touchdown.
Yeah.
Get the 2-point conversion. Then Andrew Makuba makes the – I mean, look, this game had everything you could want as a college football fan. What more do you – how were you not entertained? Now, you may have needed a defibrillator, like someone said, myself included, along the way. But how do you not wake up with a smile this morning after that game because you got a little lucky. They got a little lucky. It was just that game was worth the price of admission for anybody that attended it, and for anybody that watched it on TV. I mean, it was a great game.
I always say this too: the emotions we on the watch with us, right, and the post games and all these chats and things. I always say we have to separate that from the way recruits and prospects look at that game. So we live in the game like this. Those guys say, and there's a few that may, right? They may say, what was that play call? What was this? What was that? But they saw an unbelievable game, and they saw Texas get back to the college football semifinal. And that's something to remember as well from a recruiting standpoint, whether it be high school recruiting or portal recruiting. Look, if you're a portal player, what'd you see yesterday? Andrew Makuba, Matthew Golden. Man, I mean, guys that transferred into Texas, A.D. Mitchell last year, guys making huge plays. I mean, what a month. Well, start of a new month. What a 5 weeks Matthew Golden's had at Texas, Bobby. Transfer.
Hey, anybody questioning the power of the portal? Okay. Quinn Ewers came to Texas through the portal. Matthew Golden came to Texas through the portal. And Andrew Makuba came to Texas through the portal.
Can I add two more?
Yeah.
Sam Sadabo and Sam Levitt.
Well, portal for Arizona State. Yeah.
They went from 3-9 to playoff.
Yeah, no doubt. So good stuff. Hey, I've got a question for y'all. And I was actually on a radio show this morning. I don't even know where it was located. Somewhere in the Southeast. They asked me to come on. I said yes. They asked me a question that I hadn't even contemplated until they asked it. Where does this 4th and 13 pass from Quinn Ewers rate among passes all time in Texas football history? Now, I will say this. Granted, this is not played out because if Texas were to go on and win a national championship, I think it even gets escalated, right? But still, you're talking about the stakes that were at hand. College football playoff, 4th and 13, do or die. The other team had already scored. Where does it rank all time? And Jerry, to your point, what does that do to cement Quinn's legacy? He now, I will say this, Quinn Ewers now, and maybe this is what he was lacking the whole time, he now has a defining play as a Texas Longhorn. Before that, did he have a defining play as a Texas Longhorn?
I mean, not in a do or die game, right? People will say, well, the game at Alabama, and I agree as a game, but we're talking in a legitimate moment, maybe the throw to A.D. Mitchell, right? After Alabama had scored, but that's different. It's second game of the year. It's a regular season game. It was a huge win for Sark in the program. So I get those discussions, but we're talking about a Big 12 championship game, an SEC championship game, college football playoff, right? If you had to have a moment, a drive, a throw to win it, we've been talking about that. Quinn's going to have to at some point when the chips are down. Since he's not a runner and you're not going to call design runs, it's got to be with this. It's got to be with the right arm. And he did have his moment, and I'm happy for him because, man, being a quarterback at Texas or, hey, Jalen Milrose going through it at Alabama at these blue bloods, man, it's a fishbowl, and it's a rocky road at times, or a lot of high seas, man, that you're trying to drift through. But I think he had his moment, and I'm happy.
I do think he had his moment. It's different than the Alabama game because that was more of a total game. It wasn't a singular moment. And Texas ran the ball well in that game. They did Sark schemed a bunch of guys open in that game. This was Quinn Ewers. This was on Quinn Ewers' back. Yes, Matthew Golden ran a hell of a route and great play. But Quinn got him in the right play, got him in the right protection for the blitz. You could see it happening if you go back and rewatch it. This is the defining play for Quinn Ewers. He's finally got something that you can circle. This was all Quinn. The pass to A.D. Mitchell, for example, that was a hell of a catch by A.D. Mitchell. both at TCU and at Alabama, right? Fingertip grabs or laying on his back grabs. This was on Quinn Ewers. This was his moment, and he shined. As far as passes all time, Jerry and Blake, passes all time. A lot of people are saying 4th and 5. That's not a pass. That is, to me, that is still the greatest play in Texas football history. 4th and 5. So not trying to say it usurps that or take, but 1969, old guys will tell you, James Street to Randy Peschel on 4th and 2 in Fayetteville. Texas won the national championship on that play, potentially. So that would be one. James Brown, 1996, I think, in the Big 12 championship, John Malkovich called an improbable roll left option pass on its own 29.5-yard line, trying to get a first down on 4th and 1. Quan Cosby, touchdown catch in the Fiesta Bowl in the fourth quarter to beat them. Then you had also Limas Swede in the horseshoe.
I was going to say Vince the Limas.
Yeah, Vince the Limas Swede in the horseshoe. You had Tony Jeffrey against Kansas, although that was a little that wasn't necessarily, the stakes weren't as high, you know. I look at it and I think to myself, where does this rank? Top 3 or 4 for sure. Given the stakes, I mean, playing in a college football do or die advance,
and how the game was playing out too. I mean, how the game was playing out from 24-8 to, oh my gosh, here it goes to overtime, right? Yep. And the chips were down. The chips were down. I mean, I don't know how many. Raise your hand in the chat if you seriously thought Texas was going to win that game in overtime.
Oh, not me. Not me. I'm not a I don't know how to say this, but and that's the other thing that made this game great, Jerry. That's what I'm trying to say to you. That's the other thing that made this game great. Texas literally stole victory from the jaws of defeat after Arizona State doing the exact same thing to them. I mean, look, at one point they were 99%. Texas was 99% favorites to win this game. At another time, it looks like Arizona State was 90% favorites to win.
Yeah.
You don't see that very often. You just don't. That's not a usual chart. So look, I'm excited about how Texas played and was resilient. I don't know if you saw Steve Sarkisian's post-game press conference. That was the first thing he talked about, was the resiliency of this team. But we can talk about the individuals, whether it was Quinn Ewers stepping up, whether it was Matthew Golden, to your point, Jerry, earlier, being as good as it gets down the stretch here for Texas, because that wasn't his only good catch, by the way.
Oh, gosh,
the 2-point conversion, I mean, he went up like a man and got
that down earlier in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. The go route. I'll say this: Quinn Ewers went to 2 people, Matthew Golden and Gunnar Helm.
Yeah. As Rod Babers, who will join us later, said, players, not plays. And it was players, not plays late in that game. 100% agree with Rod.
Absolutely. Good stuff.
Hey, by the way, for those that have, obviously we talk football on here, and I make the reference all the time. But for those that have never been to an NCAA tournament game, that's what that was like yesterday.
It felt like it.
The underdog, the run, the underdog. People started kind of, here we go. That was an NCAA tournament game all the way, an Elite Eight type of NCAA tournament game where the underdog fought back, made it a game. Then people start on social media, obviously cheering for the underdog. That was an NCAA tournament Elite Eight game, is what that was yesterday, just with football pads on.
And they had, you know what? It was also very much like basketball. They had 2 outstanding players.
Yep.
The other team had 2 outstanding players and a group of role players stepping up for them, right? And that's like a big-time basketball team that goes on a run in the playoffs.
Yeah.
That's what Arizona State had. Well-coached team.
And I want to add this, Bobby. A lot of times Cinderella put on the slipper. Texas kept them from putting on the slipper.
Yep.
Yesterday.
Yeah. Barely. 4th and 13. I read some notes in the post game. The ensuing touchdown after the Matthew Golden touchdown, the ensuing touchdown pass thrown to Gunnar Helm was a beautiful throw by Quinn Ewers. He was money in that overtime period, no doubt about it. That throw was that play was last ran against Iowa State more than a year ago. So Sark was in his bag in overtime a little bit, thankfully. I thought that was also interesting how Sark at 4th and 13 decided to go for the end zone instead of the sticks. You could tell they were playing the sticks.
Yeah.
Stop the first down, and that's why Golden got behind them. They basically, so good stuff, in my opinion. Good stuff.
All right, I wanted to read this super chat real quick here from Longhorn Frenzy. He says, Quinn takes a lot of heat on social media and in this chat sometimes, but he was absolutely nails yesterday. Extremely happy for him. Legacy game. Hook 'em.
Absolutely. Completely agree, Longhorn Frenzy. By the way, Longhorn Frenzy, I made a quote on Twitter yesterday asking if anybody had any extra blood pressure medication they could spare. He said he was all out of his. He had already taken all 20. In all seriousness, that was just a great football game, and everything you could actually want in a entertaining football game. Even though Texas maybe didn't play up to its own standards, I guess, and you had a plucky Arizona State team throw everything at Texas that they absolutely had, kind of laying in wait for 3 weeks, and getting that done. All right, I need to say thank you to Austin Underground. They're our Thursday sponsor of Coffee and Football. Since 2004, Austin Underground has specialized in difficult underground commercial installations. The team's engineering background gives Austin Underground the ability to perform work other firms often consider too risky. Rick Vavro and his team offer an end-to-end client experience, including seamless communication, budgeting, staffing, and top-notch trade partners. And most importantly, they produce solid quality work each and every time. That's Austin Underground. Also, if you're out in the Jonestown area, the Austin, greater Austin area, check out Rick's new bar, the Lone Star Bar. Go out there, have some fun with him. Take care and enjoy yourself. Rick, a Austin UT grad, does a great job. Entrepreneur by nature, even though he has an engineering degree at the University of Texas. Thanks, Rick, for your sponsorship of On Texas Football.
All right, guys. And here in a minute, we'll be joined by Coach Fizel, the head coach and athletic director of Gunnar High School. He's a Texas Ex. He'll be giving us his thoughts on the game and answering some questions. While we wait on him, I want to read a couple more here. This one from Eric Mitchell. He said, I kept receipts of all the people in this chat that said Quinn can't win the game for us when we need him. He put the cape on. Give him his due.
Look, that's what we were talking about. It's going to come down. Longhorn Frenzy. That's a funny comment. You got to bring that one up at 8:34 comment, Blake. But yeah, look, that's what we've been talking about. Look, there was going to come a moment in this season. There was going to come a moment this season where the chips were down and Quinn had to deliver, and I was so happy to see him get it done.
I love it too. All right, Blake, our first guest of the morning is here. Why don't you introduce the state championship coach?
All right, I'm going to bring him on in. Coach Jake Fizel of Gunnar High School, head coach, athletic director. Coach Fizel, how's it going this morning?
We're losing you, Coach. Can't hear you. We can't hear you. I don't know if your mic is not on or what. You there now, Coach? Still can't hear him. Blake, let's let him get that figured out, and we'll bring him back in a minute. Okay.
Sounds good.
All right, I'll take over. Why don't you call Coach, and Jerry and I will handle it for a second. Okay.
I'll be right.
Okay, gotcha. Hey, Jerry, we talked about yesterday, and there's so much to talk about, whether it was the pass rush for Texas in the first half, but the slipperiness of Sam Levitt was absolutely outstanding.
Oh, my gosh.
I mean, I don't know if he's a great thrower of the football because we really didn't see him throw it all that well. Frankly, I mean, he had a couple of nice passes, but it was his legs and escapability that really taxed the Longhorns, I thought. You agree with that? And then Cam Scatabo came out and played, like I said, kind of like a Marvel superhero of sorts.
Yeah, so watching Arizona State a little bit this year, I think he can throw it. I for a redshirt freshman, I think he's got an extremely bright future. He threw the dot to Scatabo, which is crazy. If you didn't hear the press conference after the game, we have it on the YouTube channel here. Listen to Cam Scatabo said he went to Dillingham, said it's time for me to run a go route. I don't know if you saw that, Bobby, and Dillingham said, yeah, let's do it. I mean, it was like, but he threw a dot on that play. Obviously, it was their offensive. We can get on this stuff, okay? But Levitt made some throws on the move, going right under duress that I thought were really high level throws. He wasn't going to have time to throw it down the field, and Jordan Tyson was hurt. But they weren't going to have time to throw it down the field. But the crazy thing, even though it was 17-3 at half, I thought his feet kept Arizona State from getting blown out in the first half. When Scatabo couldn't get anything going in the run game, his feet kept plays alive, kept drives alive, gave him a chance to be a playmaker. I was watching that game thinking Texas would have had 5 or 6 sacks in the first half of that game against some other quarterbacks they'd played this year. Those drives would have been killed. It would have been punt time. And Arizona State wouldn't have even been able to hang around the 17-3. I thought the guy made incredible plays with his feet in that first half, especially, that kept them in the game at 17-3 when it had a chance to get ugly.
All right, guys, we're going to try this one more time. Coach Zell, how's it going this morning?
Good. You guys hear me?
Yeah, we got you now, Coach. Hey, congratulations, man. Texas grad, state champ. How did you do it, and what was it like for the guys from Gunner?
It was good, man. Put in a lot of hard work, a lot of dedication. Kids just, it's hard to go do something 2 times in a row, much less 3 times in a row. And I thought our kids just, the grit, the determination, and then just the willingness to just go back to work and do all the things you've got to go do to go win a championship, just really showed their brotherhood and their fight, and just really proud of them.
Coach, I got to ask you, where are you originally from? When did you graduate from Texas? That sort of stuff. To give people a little bit of your background, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So I went to high school at Frisco High School back when Frisco was a 3A high school.
One high school.
Yeah, one high school town. So Frisco High School graduated from UT in May of 04. My first coaching job, I've got the most simple coaching journey in the world, man. My first coaching job was as a defensive assistant here in Gunner. And then I became the defense coordinator pretty quick, and then became the head coach in 07. So, and then been here ever since.
Congratulations, man.
Coach, I want to ask you this as a Texas grad who watched the game last night. We're going to get your thoughts on the game. Along your 3 state championship run here, did you have a game similar to that? I mean, did you have a game like that with your Gunner team?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, from what I saw last night, I mean, they jumped out on them, pretty quick. And I think everybody saw that. But I mean, when you're playing a team, especially a team that's had, a week to prepare for you, I think if I'm Arizona State, I'm thinking the whole time, hey, you got a couple of Clemson practices in there maybe, but I mean, you're practicing to beat Texas for sure. So, you're getting everything Arizona State's got. They're obviously a gritty, great football team. And, but yeah, I mean, I think that Texas jumped out early. I thought their special teams was playing really good, really controlled the first half, but never really was able to really pull away. And then, they got into a fight in the third quarter. And obviously I thought Texas just really showed who they are and what they are, with coming and winning a game like that in the end. But I mean, they're, I think, Sarkisian said it even after the game. I mean, I don't think they've really played their absolute best football yet, and they're still winning these playoff games. I mean, I think we all realize that they're going to have to play their absolute best, this next game for sure. But I mean, their potential is just untapped. I mean, they're they're obviously one of the best teams in the country, and they got a real chance to go win it all.
What does it say about Quinn Ewers and what he did in that? Hey, look, he led his team on 2 fourth-quarter drives for field goal attempts. Came back through the touchdown pass in the first overtime. The second overtime, hell of a throw. I mean, Gunnar makes a catch too. By the way, that's not easy. What do you think of Quinn?
Yeah, the thing I'm so impressed with is his his quiet confidence and his poise. I mean, he's you could just see like his confidence in himself. He's never too up and never too down. I think that a quarterback has got to be his own personality. But I do think that there's an ebb and flow in every single football game. And I think that a quarterback's got to be able to manage all those things. And I think Quinn does a fantastic job of managing his emotions. And then, and as he goes, that team goes. And I think you're never out of the fight when you got a quarterback like that. Obviously, their coaching staff, Sarkisian puts them in situations where their players can go make plays. Yeah, I mean, the poise that he has, making a couple little key checks down there, towards the end of the game. And then obviously, making the throws there at the end of the game, standing in there and delivering. I mean, he's a champion, and I'm excited to see what he can do this next game.
Hey, Coach, we got we got a lot of people asking this question to you, like this one from Marco Mendez. He says, Coach, have you ever had a team with issues like Texas does in the third quarter? If so, how did you fix it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're playing great football teams right now, and they're coming out in the third quarter, and you're getting people's best adjustments. You're getting people. I mean, everybody has had an opportunity to gear up and beat Texas, and Texas is never going to get anybody's B game. I mean, they're always going to get everybody's A game. So, I think there's every game, and every game, obviously schematically and personnel wise, you're playing a different team, but also every game takes on a life of its own. And I think the Texas staff just does a great job of just getting into a game, finding the things that they've got to do within that game to win that game. And, I thought that's what you saw against Arizona State. You saw a team, hang in there and fight back. I thought their defense played fantastic the whole game. I mean, they were on the field the whole freaking game. And then, offense, obviously there are some struggles there, but, and then, a little bit of some struggles in the kicking game, but just the never quit, the fight, I thought that's what championship teams are made of. I mean, nobody says you got to win them all pretty. I mean, you just got to win them. So that's what you're seeing right now. And I mean, they're in the top, they're going to be, obviously they're in the top 4 teams in the nation. I mean, so they got a chance to do it.
Coach, I got to ask you, you played in Jerry World for the state championship now a couple times, right?
Yes,
Congratulations for that. What kind of offense do you run to give people a sense of who Gunnar is as a football team and who you took after in your coaching life?
Yeah, so our roots are you wouldn't think this probably watching us this year, but our roots are rooted in kind of flex bone, wing T background, and we've transitioned and morphed into I guess some of the stuff that Army and Navy are doing now with some of the pistol backfields and things like that. But we, to our core, I mean, we run the midline, we run the triple option and things like that. But it's high school football, so you've got to be able to, adjust to what your personnel gives you year in and year out. So, we want to be able to run the quarterback. We want to be able to throw the ball downfield and play action. But this year, we were probably a little bit more of a traditional look. I guess we ran more zone option schemes and some of the RPO schemes with the slots and with the tight ends. And then, but we want to try to stress the defense with reading people on the first and second level. We want to try to stress the defense on throwing the ball, out on the perimeter and fast screens, and then obviously going over the top, and play action games. So that's kind of who we want to be. But year in, year out, you gotta adapt and change and find the things that suit your personnel for that year.
Hey, Coach,
go ahead, Jerry.
4 state titles into it now, if I'm not mistaken. When you took the head coaching job, obviously you knew you could build this program and what this program was and could obviously become. Could you? I mean, I asked this question. Every answer is no, but could you have ever imagined it? I mean, 3 in a row. Now, I think the last 3 state title games has been 100-38 or something like that combined, or 104. What could you ever have imagined this?
No, I mean, there was a long time where, I mean, I never thought that I would be in Gunner for as long as I am. It's just something that, I mean, I think it's, really it's just, it's God working, in my life and in the lives of, all those around me. I mean, I never would have thought that when I first started coaching here in Gunner, number one as an assistant, then as a head coach too, you just figure you're going to move on at some point. But, the program just grew and grew every single year. We had more buy-in. We had more buy-in from my admin and from our school board, from our community. And now I've got kids in the elementary school, kid in the junior high. I mean, it's just a great place. I mean, it's, obviously, we get to go play at AT&T, get to go play on TV and do all those kind of fun things. And that's a great showcase for our community and for our school. But I mean, we have great schools. I mean, our admin is unbelievable. Our teachers are great. It's just a really, really good place to raise your kids. And that's, I mean, honestly, that's the reason why me and my wife stay here, is that we want our kids to hopefully graduate from Gunner High School.
Coach, I got one more question for you, and I promised my oldest son I would ask it.
Yeah.
Who are the maybe top 2 or 3 most physical teams that you have played over your career?
Well, we've had the opportunity to play some really physical ones. I think, obviously that Woodville team that we played the state championship game, I've got to give a lot of credit to their coaching staff and their kids. They were a physical bunch. I think last year's Tidehaven team, was an extremely physical football team. And I could go on and on and on, but obviously we played Salina this year. Salina is a great football team, got a great scheme, and their kids and coaches do a great job. But and this is not blowing smoke either. We played Comanche last year in the 3rd round, and I always ask our kids at the end of the season, like, especially our offensive and defensive line, like, who's the most physical team you played, or who was our toughest team that we played, and they told me that it was Comanche, and I think that goes back. Coach Escobar and what his staff do there is unbelievable. But they are, our kids said that, we were able to kind of run away with that game at the end and kind of gain control of it. But there towards the start, I mean, it was a hard hit, and it was a physical football game, and they were giving us some stuff down the field, and we weren't really connecting. But our kids told me that at the end of that game, they're like, man, those kids, they never quit, and they just fought. And, so I've got a ton of respect for Comanche, for Coach Escobar, for everything that they do over there. They are definitely in the top teams that we play as far as physicality.
Well, I think you made him really happy, Coach.
They do a great job. No doubt.
All right, Coach. Well, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I know you got another long off season coming ahead. Best of luck with it, and best of luck next season. And we'll have to get you back on sometime soon.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Appreciate it. Hook 'em,
Coach. Take care,
Coach.
Longhorn grad. He said 04. He graduated right on the cusp of when it really started getting really, really good.
Yeah,
for the Longhorns in the aughts.
Congrats on 3 state titles in a row. That's lofty stuff. I don't care where you coach, what level, what sport, man. You win 3 in a row. That's hellacious stuff.
It is. Hey, I got a question for y'all. Just talking about rarefied air that Texas is in. When's the last time Texas finished top 4 in consecutive years? Would it be 08, 09? Probably. Have to be. Yeah. And then before that, 04, 05.
Yeah.
So Texas is going to finish top 4 2 years in a row. All right. Hey, let's bring in Rod Babers. We got our friend Rod ready to talk to us a little bit. He's still thinking about this game from last night or yesterday afternoon. Rod B, I know you've started looking at a little film and trying to break stuff down, but I've got a different question for you.
All right.
You're a little bit of a long timer. You've got your long in the tooth at Texas.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Question for you. Greatest pass plays in Texas history. Greatest pass plays in Texas history. Where does Quinn's 4th and 13 sit? I mean, it's up there, right?
It's up there. It's up there. It depends on how you finish the mission. You win a championship, man, it rises way up there, right? It's up there, one of the greatest plays, passing plays of all time. You don't win a championship as a result of it, then I think it kind of loses some of its luster. So I think it's yet to be determined. It's right now, it's in my top 5. I mean, 4th and 13, guys. You don't get more clutch than that. You don't get more clutch than making a perfect throw on 4th and 13. So I'll just give him credit for, having the clutch gene late down the stretch. Was he good throughout the game? No, of course he wasn't. I mean, we can talk about that all, but being good and being clutch are different. Go watch the Kansas City Chiefs play football right now. They're not good. They're clutch. They're clutch. Everybody plays with them for 3 quarters, but you ain't more clutch than them. So if you ain't good, you better be clutch. And he wasn't good, but damn, he was clutch.
Yeah.
So I'll take it.
Hey, Roddy, led him on 2 fourth-quarter drives to go ahead and or seal the game for kicks. Comes back, throws the 4th and 13, then he throws the dot to Gunnar Helm. And then he puts the ball in that. I think the underrated throw there is the pass to Matthew Golden on the 2-point conversion.
Yeah.
He put that up high, the only place Matthew Golden could go up and get it and not be either interfered with. I mean, he threw the ball well the last 5 minutes of that game. I think CJ Vogel came up with that stat, 11 of 14 for 165 with the 5 minutes left to go in the 4th quarter, the rest of the way.
Well, I was more impressed with who they went to, right? That they went with guys they can trust down the stretch. I kept yelling on in-game live watch. I kept hearing Greg Davis in my head. Players, not plays in big-time clutch moments. Forget about your plays. Your plays should only be able to get the ball. Look at Scatterboo.
Yep.
Players, not plays, man. Just find a way to get back, do the football. And I think when all else failed, that's kind of what they went to. I don't know if it was Quinn or if it was Sark or it was a combination of both. But it felt like to me there was some dialed up plays for those guys, and Quinn knew exactly where he was going with the football. And that's why down the stretch, I believe out of those 15, if you include the 2-point conversion, out of those 15 targets down the stretch, 9 of those went to Gunnar Helm and to Matthew Golden. Yeah. Both of those guys. And I don't know why, but Gunnar Helm, 4 targets in the game, 3 of them came after that last 5 minutes of the game in regulation and in those 2 overtimes. And they were huge. They're as big as you could get on the big stage. So I just think he went with players he could trust down the stretch. And don't forget, Ryan Wingo made a couple of big time plays down the stretch there. 2 catches. He only had 3 targets. 2 of his 3 targets came in clutch time. And Matthew Golden had 10 targets. I believe 6 of those came in clutch time. So clutch time, it wasn't necessarily the scheme. It wasn't the scheme. I did like Sark's call, though. I mean, that 4th and 13 call was a nice call. And then that tight end leak, they end up scoring the game winner. We've been seeing that damn thing we've been seeing it all postseason long. Boise State ran one of them. You'll see it again, too, I guarantee you. But I like the fact they went with what they could trust down the stretch. My playmakers, man. And we're at the 15th game of the season. By now, you should know who you can trust. And we know. And that running game, listen, we love the running game. It's great. I don't know if you can trust the Texas running game. It just got good at the end of the season. Didn't do much versus Georgia, but we like, Georgia, that's a bad matchup. And then Arizona State just comes out there. And I have not broken down the film yet. I'm going to do that after we get done and try to look at what the hell they did in the run game. But I like that Brian knows ball, especially line play better than any of us. And he's just like, man, they beat him to the marks. And when he said that, it triggered something in my mind because I remember watching some of the coaching clinics with Kyle Flood. He always talks about man marks and landmarks. Yeah. And man mark is a person that you are trying to block, and a landmark is an area that you're trying to get to. And everybody's in the run game got landmarks. O-lineman got landmarks, and the running backs also have landmarks. Running back is eyeing a certain, either the hip of some offensive lineman or eyeing the outside shoulder when they're running certain plays. And essentially, I believe he's right about Arizona State. He's going to beat Texas to the marks.
They did. They beat him to the landmark. Sark talked about that before Texas started running the ball better in one of the press conferences, maybe midway through the season. It was actually after the Georgia game. He was like, we got Georgia was beating us to our landmarks. We've got to redefine our landmarks.
Yes. Yep.
And look, I'm going to give Arizona State credit. They pulled off something I didn't think they could. They won the landmark battle in the run game. I didn't think they could, honestly.
I agree. I was proven wrong on that one. I had but they had 3+ weeks to prepare. And I will say they used it defensively to figure out how to stop the Texas. Texas did not have an explosive run play, guys. They did not have a run play over 10 yards. Guys, against Georgia, they had a couple. They had a couple against Georgia the first time and the second time. And they couldn't manage to get a run of at least 10 yards against Arizona State.
You know what's crazy? Until the Texas defense got tired, Scatterbo didn't either. Like that,
he had one. He had the very first play of the game.
That was 10 yards though, but we're explosives. I mean, I talked 15.
Well, right? I consider explosive and it's a 10-yard run.
Okay.
A 10-yard run for a 10-yard run, 20-yard pass, 10-yard run. That's my definition. Everybody's got a different one.
Yeah. So I mean, they're really first play of the game. There wasn't one until the Texas defense started getting tired.
Yep.
That's true.
I agree with that.
This was a game where we talked about it, Rod. Sam Leavitt in the first half without scoring a touchdown. I was thinking they're going to watch with us. And then even this morning when Bobby asked, I'm not sure I've seen a quarterback keep his team in the game without scoring points like Sam Leavitt did, just holding the ball, possessing the ball, making plays, making first downs, keeping plays alive when they were teetering. They were teetering if he doesn't keep – because Scatterbo he didn't want doing anything in the first half of that game. What, 13 for 44, 12 for 12? But he wasn't what we saw in the second half. They didn't get him involved in the passing game till after the wide receiver screen game wasn't going to work. But I'm not sure I've seen a quarterback keep his team in a game without scoring points like that before. It was a weird game to watch.
It was. And he wasn't making a lot of plays down the field with his arm. You're right. He was just keeping plays alive. You know what I mean? And he did a great job against that Texas defense. He was running for his life. Then late, once Texas defense got worn out, I think, guys, once you go back and rewatch it, I mean, that defense was spent. They were spent. I mean, thank God McCooper made that play at the end of the game, but I got to go look at snap count. There's no way Texas has played, those players in terms of snaps, have played anything close to what they played versus
97 plays.
Not even close, guys. Yeah, snap count. That's not including some guy. Think about snap count, though, it's penalties. The penalty plays don't count in that. Right. That's just the plays that counted. The penalty plays don't count. I ran all the way downfield, and y'all call a holding call. I got to run all the way back. Y'all don't count that, but that is special teams. That's also in the snaps. God, some of those guys are worn out. They got to 100 snaps. A couple of 98 snaps. Go look at how many snaps Anthony Hill played. Worn out. Some guys don't leave the field that often. Right. D-line rotates, but your back seven don't rotate that much. Not as much, not that much.
Hey, Rod, got a question here from Z from the T. What a game. Wasn't what we expected, but the better team won. How do we stop Ohio State? I know you watched a little bit of that game.
Man.
Rod, they got some weapons, bud. They got 2 big running backs that are elite. They've got a wide receiver that maybe go down as one of the best that's played this game in a while. What do you think of Ohio State and how you stop that Ohio State offense? Michigan's done it, so it can be done.
Oh, it can be done. Yeah, it can be done. Michigan probably, I got to go back and look at, I bet Michigan played more man-to-man than Texas is willing to. Texas doesn't play a lot of man-to-man. They play a lot of zone. And if you want to stack that box, which you're going to need to stack that box to stop those guys at times in terms of situationally, you're going to have to risk, Texas going to have to risk playing some man-to-man. And they need to risk lighting up Will Howard. You got to come after that dude, man. You can't let Will. You need to see Will spill the pill, Howard, because we know he exists. He's in there. All right, and not Will the Thrill Howard, who you saw last night. All right, lighting up Oregon. All right, they both exist. As a matter of fact, Texas saw him in the same game a couple of years ago. You can see in the same game. You see he lit up Texas later on in that game for K-State, but was a guy that was mistake prone early in that game. So I think you got to force Will Howard into making mistakes. I think he will. But to do that, you got to earn the right to rush the passer. You got to earn the right to get that NASCAR package on the field. And to do that, you got to stop the run on early down. So I think just without the film study yet, because that's something I'm going to start doing this weekend too. I'm going deep down the rabbit hole in Ohio State. I just love the familiarity, right? Jim Knowles. You know Jim Knowles. You know that 3 high. I love it how, to conquer the ecosystem of the Big 12, I kept telling you guys, you better figure out that 3 high. You don't figure it out, we ain't going to ever win the Big 12.
This is going to be the most talented 3 high Texas has played.
Yeah, so Sark had to figure it out. He came up with his own antidote and game plan to figure it out and played like 6-7 teams that were throwing the 3 high at him because they all knew it worked pretty well and matched up well. But now, like Jerry just pointed out, now you got to see the more sophisticated, elevated, elite version of the 3 high. Not the big
first round picks on defense in a 3 high.
Yeah, so if you did figure it out, Sark, oh man, it will be tested now. So I love that. Hey, it still comes back around. You still have to figure out that 3 high. And nobody, I don't know if there's an offensive coordinator out there with as much experience, offensive mind out there with as much experience versus the 3 high than Sark. Because he's faced it so much in the Big 12 for those last 2 years. So that is the blessing in disguise. Hell, I got notes on notes about the 3 high, what to do with it. And it's because I've been watching Sark versus the 3 high. So I love that matchup. And then Will Howard. You got notes on Will Howard. You know how he works. He's gotten better as a player, but he's gotten better because the talent around him is better. He's gotten better because I think the scheme is better. I think Will's Spill the Pill is still in there.
Hopefully he's unearthed. Eric Mitchell, morning from West Texas, fellas. This is something we haven't hit on yet, guys. Is it just me, or is it unreal the amount of people calling for the game to be decided by the officials? The targeting debate has gotten unreal.
Unbelievable.
That game was not decided by, not in my opinion. As much as Texas doinked the field goal, that game was not decided by targeting. It was decided on the field of play. There was another targeting that could have gone for Texas. I got to say this. Where were the holding calls all game? If you want to talk about issues with the officials, let's talk about there was not a single offensive hold all game long. Is that humanly possible in the game of football? No offense.
No.
I don't think it is.
Not possible. I agree. And if they were letting you hold, why couldn't we get an explosive run play?
Because we were conditioned by the SEC not to hold, or else it'd be called.
There's that, Bobby. There is an element of that. I totally agree. Totally. Texas is very, very aware after playing in the SEC this year how many holding calls they've gotten and why they've gotten them. Then that's the crazy thing to me, whether it's basketball or football, it's like, well, we got Big Ten refs this week at SEC. Why is it different? Like they always talk about that in basketball. The Big 12 refs call a different game. Why? I get that the argument SEC has bigger, longer limb athletes on defensive line, blah, blah, blah. It becomes what you are. I get it. But why is the question. Borat, I wanted to ask you this on the targeting, non-targeting, targeting, non-targeting. I don't think it was targeting personally, but I wanted to ask you this as a player that played in these situations. My whole issue with the targeting rule and the argument for Michael Taft right here on this singular play is when you are closing to dislodge somebody from the ball, when that receiver goes to make the play to catch the football, he is 6 to 8 inches higher than after he catches the football to sink his hips and make a move.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Michael Taft, that wasn't a leading crown play. He was making a really good football play there that because the wide receiver turned and sunk his hips to make a move ended up being face mask contact. But Rod, as a player, you can't react to those things in that short amount of time. If they had called targeting, you'd have been like, as a player, you'd been like, there's a couple NFL players reacting to the ESPN Instagram on it, like, this game is played too fast to sit there and as a safety trying to dislodge a ball, have to react to a guy turning his head and dropping his hips 6 inches to make a move against you.
Yep, exactly. You've already started your angle to the football.
Yeah,
guys at that kind of speed. Unless you're an X-Man, there's no way to really change that trajectory. And to your point, Jerry, because he had sound football fundamentals, see what you hit. All right. The problem is a lot of guys don't do that. They put their head down. They don't really want to do that. They just want to put their head down. No. See what you because of that. That's why it wasn't a target because he was looking at it. Face mask is what hit it. So it was. I thought it was a good football play. I understand them wanting to take out some of the hellacious, violent hits out of the game. Trust me, I get that. But man, you can't make it impossible to play defense out there.
No,
guys are still trying to go, hard to the football. They're trying to, dislodge the football. Like you said, if that's the case, I still got to come with some force. I can still do it within the rules, but you got to give. I think their refs got that one right. I think they got it right. I know people complain about the Bond one too. Isaiah Bond probably should have got a targeting call. I mean, he did hit him in the head, but I don't know if he did it with his head, so I don't know if you get targeting on that. I'm glad the officials didn't call targeting. I hope guys are all right. I don't want guys hurt out there. But football is a violent, physical game.
I would say this. The reason they didn't call it, apparently, was because they did not see a leading indicator. Like he didn't launch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
he didn't use the crown of his helmet. He didn't sink his hips.
This is a good football play.
Straight.
It's like the Makuba play, right? The Makuba play in the Georgia game was like, ooh, it's like your first instinct now because we all have, we're sensitive to, injuries and brain injuries. It's to just call the penalty and call it targeting and kick the guy out of the game. But I'm glad they're looking at it. And I was like, no, that was just a damn good football play. It was violent. And we don't, that all makes us, gets us a little uneasy to see that kind of violence still in the game. But it is a violent game. So I'm glad.
It's a violent game. And it's a game that's played in space now, more so than 30 years ago with people running option football more so. The game's played in space. Guys are running full speed at each other. And you cannot control when a guy sinks his hips as an offensive player if you're a defensive player. When does he going to turn his head? When is he going to sink his hips? And that 6 inches makes all the difference in the world in your contact. You can't control that as a defensive player. That's the issue I have with targeting. You cannot control when the offensive player is going to stick his foot in the ground and sink his body and sink his hips. So that's my issue with targeting on some levels right now. And you got to protect the players. But as a defensive player, man, you can't control. Michael Taft was making a really good football play. You can't control when a guy's going to turn his head and how he's going to react in his peripheral to seeing the defender coming at him.
Because we see it in slow mo, Jerry, at home, and everybody's like, "Oh, that's the draw." Like, well, you saw it in slow motion. A game ain't played in slow motion, man.
All right, guys, we got one here from Jack, and he says, "I have a new wish for the new year: to never hear the words again. We got out coached."
It happened yesterday.
It happens. Great coaches get out coached. It happens. I mean, they're really good. Kalen DeBoer's a good coach. Got out coached. I mean, there's gonna be a time during the season where you're gonna get out coached. Just like some guys gonna make a play on you. I mean, they're really good coaches out there. Really good coaches. Nick Saban's got out coached. I've seen it. I mean, it happens. Sark out coached Nick Saban. What y'all talking about? It happens. Like guys, it happens. Dillingham's a damn good coach. I mean, I think he's a good young coach, and he had 3.5 weeks to prepare for Texas. He had a good game plan. But yes, I mean, you shouldn't get out coached more than twice a year at Texas. But is it going to happen? Yeah. I've been Venables out coach Sark. What are y'all talking about, man? It happens. Yeah. They're good coaches. Okay.
I got to say this, and on top of that, with Texas, and as it relates to that, it's specific areas that concern you if they're consistent in being out coached, right?
Third quarter.
Special teams right now on some fakes.
Fair.
But also I want to add this, and we talked about it with Dillingham going into this game. We said, what are the recipes for an Arizona State upset win over Texas? And one of the things we said is throwing the entire kitchen sink at Texas. Okay. A fake punt is the kitchen sink.
That's true.
A half-pack pass is the kitchen sink. 38 minutes of possession is the kitchen sink. So, I mean, I think there's two pieces there. Being habitually out-coached in a certain area, and then also just the awareness that, look, Arizona State threw everything they had at this sucker.
Yeah, could have been arrogance. Could have been arrogance a little bit.
Well,
yeah.
Hopefully you're able to stay on with us here for a minute because we got a lot more questions. People would love your input. But before we get to those questions, Bobby, Jerry, I'm sorry, let everyone out there know about Duck Camp.
Oh, boy, will I. Boy, there was some hunting going on yesterday. Duck gear is made for the people that live in the moments out there where there are fish to catch, birds to hunt, time to kill, football to watch with a heart rate that's going up and down. They like doing all that stuff. So they built a company centered on it, based in Austin, and dedicated to giving people best-in-class hunting and fishing apparel. There are those of you out there who look forward to the opening day of hunting season, like a college football semifinal game for a second year in a row, with the fervor and excitement of a 5-year-old on Christmas morning. And Duck Camp is here to let you know that from opening day to game day, they have you covered. At Duck Camp, they believe you can't just sit around and wait for the adventure to come to you. You have to get out there, stay out there, make the most of every second in overtime and double overtime. Here's the great continued season, y'all. Yes, hunting and the college football playoff. Shop hunting gear at duckcamp.com.
Thank you for that, Jerry. And a lot more questions to get through, guys. We're going to start with this one from Major Alexander. He says, I started not drinking this year, and I held it together during and after that game.
Good for you.
Good for you.
That kid is going to give me a heart attack at 43.
God bless you.
One day at a time. That's the slogan, is it not?
There you go.
One day at a time, Major.
Hey, Blake, real quick.
Make sure you have some ability to some outlets, on January 10th. Because on January 10th, you may be driven that direction once more when the Longhorns take the field. So
yeah,
I just wanted to add that because social media, the whole targeting, non-targeting call on TAF is going wild, especially with A&M fans. We got some joy mode for you.
Oh gosh,
you need some joy mode in your life.
A&M needs to just give it up. I mean, they're still nobody even saw them lose to USC. They need to be happy about that. That's the best thing that's happened to them. Nobody actually saw them lose.
I didn't watch it.
I think that because of the time of that game, more A&M fans may have watched Texas Arizona State than the ending of A&M USC.
No doubt.
Oh, I gotta go saw some stats on that. You could be right.
Texas will go nuts on you, Rod. Don't be digging too deep. You might get.
Don't follow my lead. Don't follow my lead on that.
All right, our next one here comes from Lock and Horns. Thank you, Lock and Horns. What do we do with Bert Auburn the rest of the playoffs and next year?
Pray. You pray for this year. You can fix it in the offseason, but yeah, you just gotta. He's got the yips. He's got it in him. He's a good kicker. We've seen that. But man, psychologically, when you get in your own head, he's in his own head now. He is. I don't know how you break the curse. He's got to do something.
Yeah, it's when you follow a right miss with a left miss. It's like a golfer that has an issue off the tee, man. Yep. You overcompensate because what Bobby, we talked about it. He's coming out of it with his left shoulder. It's like if you're a golfer, golfers know this. If you come out of that shot, you're either going to flip it and overcorrect it and duck hook it, or you're going to get under it and push it wide right. And so you saw both ends of the spectrum again yesterday for Bird on that. And the best thing you can do is get to the left hash. Everybody run to the left hash.
They tried and only got to the middle.
Not a tripping call.
Hey, I literally texted with a former Texas /NFL kicker yesterday after the game. He had told me before the game that he thought he was pulling his left shoulder out and that maybe the ball, actually the holder wasn't tipping it far enough back. And I don't know. I don't want to use his name because he hasn't told me. He hasn't told me whether or not I could use his name, but he also said that he's now officially in his head.
Yeah.
He said whenever a guy misses right and then misses left, it's absolutely he's overcorrecting. And anytime you're overcorrecting as a kicker, you're in your head.
Yeah.
So what is Texas going to do? I think Will Stone needs to have an open tryout for kicker, is what I think.
Wow.
I mean, it's past the point. He's missed 4 field goals in the last.
Yeah.
2 of the last 4. I mean, it's
good defensive team. That's how you win games. Like you need those points.
That's true. And they're also indoors on carpet.
Yeah.
No elements, no weather. No elements.
Yeah, no elements, no weather. So they're indoors. It's going to be the same situation at AT&T. You better get somebody else ready. Because if he's in his head, that can take more than 10 days to get over.
By the way, I got good news for special teams. That's a night game, so Jerry's Sun World isn't going to be affected by it.
There you go.
Hey, we haven't talked about that. I want to mention this. I don't think it'll happen, but with Georgia and Notre Dame being pushed back to today, that game is scheduled. The college football semifinal on that side of the bracket scheduled for January 9th, and Texas Ohio State January 10th. No chance they'd change the schedule around, would they? Because Georgia and Notre Dame's at a distinct disadvantage going up against Penn State now.
I didn't think about that.
It's still a 1 week difference.
I mean, I get it.
I don't think you can do that.
I don't think you can, but I just throwing it out there. I mean, I don't think so, but is it? I don't know.
Interesting. I didn't think of that. Yeah, they didn't obviously didn't plan on this. It's a good point.
All right, KD35, I am the best, says Texas plays better, pissed off, and disrespected. Let Ohio State get all the love right now. Also, this is to the same team that went to Michigan and lost.
That is true. We thought they felt disrespected because the Arizona State guys were talking trash. You had Scatterbull saying, I can't be stopped. You had Sam Levitt saying, going to prove I'm better than Quinn. We're like, thank God for the bulletin board material. Like, this group needed to be incentivized and motivated. So I guess that wasn't enough. It's possible that, they thought Arizona State, what they saw on film with Arizona State was, they thought they were going to dominate that group. I think that's possible. They just thought, we're going to whip them. And then I think the start to the game may have been the worst thing that happened to them because they started so fast. I think everybody relaxed. I think everybody was like, man, this thing is, we about to Jerry Hamilton 50 burger. We about to I think fans and players are like on that side. I think they all relaxed and were like, dude, I told you we was going to blow him out. They've been talking to. Told you we was going to blow him out, man. They some scrubs. And then as the games kind of wore on, lack of focus, lack of intensity, lack of urgency. And then, you look up and Scatterbull, but the guys was throwing up on the sideline, throwing temper tantrums. They thought it was the momentum shift was so slow and gradual. Texas had all the momentum, and you were like, man, when is Texas gonna pull away from this team? And then you looked up, and in that third quarter, they snatched it all back. That was wild. That was wild.
We got a couple of super chats here about the officiating. So I'm going to read these back to back, fellas. This one first from Bastrop Bear. He says, look at number 58 on the 2 PAT conversions. When the score was 24-22, there was a lineman downfield, called Texas for holding and moved the ball to 1. I don't want to hear about targeting. Stuff happens. See you in Dallas. And then Ron S. follows that up with Happy New Year. Coffee and football is great. Refs were terrible. It didn't penalize Arizona State for calling out Texas signals pre-snap, which is a penalty. You could see Gooseby complaining about it with his false start.
Multiple times. I was told yesterday that happened. There were 4 false starts in the fourth quarter in overtime by Texas after not having any, or maybe one prior the previous part of the game. So, yes, it absolutely happened down the stretch and almost cost Texas dearly. I mean, it was a 4th and 8 conversion. Right. And then Kelvin Banks false started to make it 4th and 13. Is that play? I talk about things that could change a game. Is Sark's play call different? If it's 4th and 8 versus 4th and 13, 4th and 8, definitely more makeable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, I agree with you. The refs, they didn't call not one hold the whole game. Give me a break. They called defensive holding.
Right.
But not offensive holding. Whole game. Go ahead, Blake. What do you got there?
Not even one way. Arizona State ran 97 plays, no hold.
Yeah.
Just another one here about the officiating from this one from Mr. T. Hook 'em. They really need to clear up the targeting rules this offseason. Seems that nobody knows what it is and what it isn't at this point. Also, good Lord, Bert, facepalm.
Boy, Rod was somebody said in the post game. It was either you or CJ, Rod, that said there are 2 people very happy that Quinn Ewers made those throws. There were 2 that were just ecstatic beyond Quinn Ewers and the rest of the team. It was Steve Sarkisian because he was supposed to win by 2 touchdowns, and it was Bert Auburn because he doinked the field goal. Nobody felt while I think everybody else felt joy and hey, they won all this other stuff. Sark is like get that thing off my back because that was going to wear me down this offseason. And Bert Auburn was like, thank you, God, I can go back to Austin.
Yeah, that's why he loves him from Quinn. He's like, Quinn, you just saved me, brother. You just saved me. That's why I rode with it. You just saved me because you're right. And CJ was right. The entire offseason, imagine having to talk about losing to Arizona State for 7 months. Sorry, that would have been great. Losing to, obviously, Ohio State, that's different as the Final Four. You got upset by Arizona State. That'd been a terrible offseason, so I think you're right about that.
And a couple more about the officiating, guys. this one here from Kyle. Can someone explain the lineman downfield on the fake punt? There were two guys who lined up on the line of scrimmage who were more than 4 yards down the field when the pass was thrown.
I have not, Kyle. If that's the case, it's illegal. I have not gone back and been able to rewatch the entire game yet. And so when I'm able to, I'll have a better conversation piece for it.
And then Trace Little, the penalty martyrs are coming out of the woods, especially the Aggies, since everything was handed to Texas. LOL.
Well,
y'all will focus on the portal in College Station. We'll focus on competing for a national championship. How about that?
I've got good news for A&M fans. There's still football being played in Texas if you want to keep watching.
Well done, Ginger.
You don't have to go to your kids' youth league basketball games yet.
Yeah. Seriously.
Jason Oblinsky says, with Bond having such an underperforming and injury-prone season, is there any chance that the staff can convince him to come back? His draft stock has taken a big hit with a lot of bad tape.
Yeah, that's tough. I don't know about we got to look at the draft board. I mean, how many wide receivers coming out? Wide receivers is the deepest position in football at any level, at every level, I should say. And it's deep. You'll hear them year after year say, man, this may be the deepest class of wide receivers we've had in a long time, because every year it feels like that. He's got world-class speed. I don't know if he's got that much he's got the production to back it up. I don't think his film's that bad. I just don't think it's been out there a lot.
Yeah.
It's more about availability. So the production doesn't line up with the freakish skill set right now.
And then Dax Kelm asks, how important was the overtime experience in the SEC championship? Find a way, hook 'em.
That's a good question. Been there before helps. Arizona State hadn't been there in at least the last 6 guys. I don't know if they had one early this year. Can't remember. But I think it helped. I don't think there's any doubt that it helped. Because when it got to that second overtime, Texas struck fast. They really did. They struck fast.
Yeah, Sark knew what he was going to call. That was obvious. He knew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. I think it definitely helped Dax. How much, we'll never know.
And going back to Bert Auburn for a moment here, fellas, Dustin Jones says, why can't we use Will Stone over Sideshow Bert? I like the guy, but when is enough? Super inconsistent, kind of like our run game.
It's true.
I think they got to have open tryouts.
Wow.
Not open, invite anybody from the
I was about to leave the chat.
But I'm talking about the guys on the team.
Yeah.
I mean, it's time. I think Bert Auburn's really good player. Has been great for Texas. Kicked more field goals than anybody in Texas football history. He's got the yips.
Mm-hmm.
There's no guarantee he gets out of the yips in 9 days. When you're in your head, having been in my head before, that as crazy as that sounds, it could take 2 weeks, it could take a day, or it could take 2 months. And there's no guarantee. So Texas needs a little more certitude in the special teams department, in the field goal in particular, going into this game against Ohio State. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, desperate times call for desperate measures. That's a desperate measure, but it is desperate times, man, because the truth is he can lose your game. Some people are suggesting he should cut his hair. They said Bert Auburn should just cut his hair off. Dude, if it's that drastic, do it.
Just cut it off the right side. Leave the left.
Or at least just get a nice little cut. Just a nice little clean cut. Like Quinn did. Remember Quinn had the mullet and was like, mullet gotta go, man. I gotta be more professional. My approach.
Nathaniel here. Nathaniel, thank you for your super chat. He says Sark would be 90% of the reason we lost. You can't throw on 2nd and 4 with 5 minutes left. Plus, he couldn't get Auburn a kick from the left hash. Sark got to do better.
Well, they tried, but Quinn tripped over a lineman on that play, I think. They tried.
Yeah, but why were you that other play? We talked about it on In-Game Live.
Three plays in a row to the right side. Yeah,
and it was like, whoa, come on, guys. He got to be on the left. Come on, to the left. What are we doing?
He got 8 yards on that play, though.
He did.
That was a 38-yard field goal. That is a chip shot.
Right.
I mean, Sark
Yeah.
Sark had plenty of. He had the timeout. He used it. I don't blame Sark for those plays to the right because he actually was really, really good.
And by the way, to Bobby's point, I mean, once you get inside 40 yards, I mean, I sit there and talk about the right hash because that is kicks to the right are the issue in terms of percentage for him in this season. But when you get inside 40, I mean, man, if you have to plant your flag on the left hash, whew,
yeah,
bad spot to be.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Slick Rick follows that up with Sark got out coach. No excuses. Kenny took away the run game and Sark couldn't adjust. We have no discipline either with nine or the second half. Tip your cap to Arizona State. Kenny did more with less.
Agreed. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I like to start the play, start dialed up down the stretch, but you didn't have a run game. I thought you'd be able to counter with the counter and with some of the power gap schemes when you watched Arizona State on film. And we said this during the week. They actually did a good job in Big 12 play. It's a different ecosystem, but in Big 12 play, they actually did a decent job of stopping wide zone teams. Kansas, who love the wide zone, Utah loves the wide zone, actually did a good job stopping teams whose identity in the run game is the wide zone. And they matched it well against Texas. I assumed, the Texas is going to counter with the inside zone, counter with counter and gap, some duo. And like I said, I'll go look at the film. But if they did go back to those gap schemes, they didn't work very well. And that's also trouble because you did have a size and a mass advantage that we thought was going to be overwhelming at one point. And it never overwhelmed Arizona State. No. It never overwhelmed them. The dam never broke. So maybe that could be the personnel on the offensive line, or maybe, the Sark just didn't have the right schemes dialed up. But there's no doubt Arizona State took your run game away. And I think they believed that was going to lead them to a path to victory. Almost did. If Quinn didn't have the clutch gene. If Quinn didn't have clutch gene, that would have been that was the path to victory for them. But he did. He ended up having the clutch gene when it counted most. And I think when he threw that interception, a lot of Longhorn fans doubted that he was going to have the clutch gene. They thought, damn, Dillingham did have a good game plan. And it was, but that's what happens when you got clutch players.
I'll raise my hand when he threw that interception.
Oh, I think we all would like, oh man.
He's been floating that ball and it finally got picked.
Why'd he throw it is the question. We said somebody's got to ask him because that double coverage guy, there's no way any quarterback reads cornerback on the upfield shoulder of a post route and a post safety, and you still throw it. And he did it, twice? He threw that ball. If it ain't predetermined, then we got to talk about what you're reading, young man. As Brian said too, some of those routes got to be I think it's predetermined. And nothing wrong with that because a lot of stuff is predetermined in Sark's offense. Nothing wrong with that. But as my man Shannon always says, be coachable, but don't be a robot. At one point, I need you to go out there and be a football player, man. If I said it was going to be open, I can be wrong too. I'm not perfect. Then don't throw it because I said it was going to be open.
You're right. It's not all bad because Gunnar Helm was a predetermined touchdown.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
It's not all bad.
No, not at all. Not at all.
All right, Rod, we got one more question for you before we let you go. I know you got a lot to do. Victor, thank you, Victor. He says, Rod, what ideas do you have to at least maybe slow Jeremiah Smith down? We have the safeties to cover over the top, but when they move him around the formation.
Yeah, they're going to try to get him matched up on your nickels, try to get him matched up on Manny.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty obvious. They're going to, not say they're going to avoid Jadae Barron, but I mean, work smarter, not harder. Right? Why have him going up against the Thorpe Award winner when I can get him matched up against guys who aren't necessarily as elite in coverage? So I think that's what you're going to get. I think they're going to come after the middle of the field a little bit where the linebackers are in that intermediate area, your nickel, and then go. So when they move them around, I would try to have a specific check or audible where we could have some type of double on them. Whether we end up, doubling with the safety of the top or doubling with inside help, or I would not like him. Now, Texas doesn't play a lot of straight up man. They play a lot of match zone, which means they match up with the guy in their zone and play man. It's basically a matchup zone concept. But in terms of man, I think they're going to have to play some man. I said this earlier, to stack the box, to stop the run game at times, and to blitz Will Howard. You're going to have to put your guys on an island every now and then. I would double that guy when I can. Situationally, I would. I wouldn't do it every down. That'll make you too vulnerable elsewhere. But situationally, definitely. Just like situationally, hell, if you're going up against Texas situation, who you going to take away? Who you going to take away? Everybody knows who you're taking away. Golden and Helm now. We know. It's like situationally, takes in trouble. You want to go beat me through with Wingo, or beat me with Bond, or beat me with Moore. You ain't gonna beat me with Golden and Helm, because I know those are your guys. Just like we know that Smith is their guy.
Rod, thank you so much for spending a little extra time with us this morning. Of course, you'll be back later today, correct? I have that right?
Sir. The winning drive at 3:15. Coach Ship, I don't know if Coach Ship is going to be on or not. He might be on, he might not. He's like over in Cabo or something like that. So he may come on, he may not. If not, just be me and CJ. We're going to have a lot of fun. We'll talk, obviously, to a lot of Texas, Arizona State. And I will finish my rewatch by then, too. So I have all types of notes on my rewatch by then.
And that will be on during the Georgia Notre Dame game. So maybe Bobby, we'll jump in there and keep it going longer. Do a little mini watch with us or something.
Yeah.
Basically, what it's going to turn into. I can tell you right now, because the TV going to be on. So yeah, it'll probably be a kind of a watch with us for them. That's okay. We'll have some fun. We'll have fun. Appreciate y'all.
Also watch the game again with Rod with second watch.
Yes. Nice. Thank you for that, Blake.
Hey, Rod, take care of yourself, buddy. Thank you for coming on this morning, man. You have a good one.
Okay.
Hook, buddy. Be good, bud. All right, Rod Babers, lifetime Longhorn, great guy. Happy he's a vital part, instrumental part in on Texas football as a whole. That is his first appearance, though, I think, on Coffee and Football for us, Jerry. In all his time here with us, just a tremendous guy on and off the field.
Yes,
just great human. All right, hey guys, I want to say thank you one more time. We've got a bunch of super chats to get to, but I need to say thank you to Rick Vavro and his team at Austin Underground. Rick and his team since 2004 have been specializing in difficult underground commercial installations. The team's engineering background gives Austin Underground the ability to perform work other firms often consider too risky. Rick and his team offer an end-to-end client experience, including seamless communication, budgeting, staffing, and top-notch trade partners. And most importantly, they produce solid quality work each and every time. That's Austin Underground. I also want to tell you about one of his sister companies, and that is Texas Road. If you have large road projects needed, whether it's subdivision or big ranches, etc., make sure you reach out to Rick and his group at texasroad.com. Thanks, Rick, for your sponsorship of Coffee and Football.
Thank you, Bobby. All right, like as you said, more questions, more super chats to get to. We're going to jump right in, guys. Justin here says the defense played 97 snaps. How does the staff get these guys rested by the 10th? And was it just me, or did Jelani McDonald start at star?
He did. He did start, and that was because he's a better run filler than Jalen Gilbo. Right?
Yeah.
That's ultimately what happened. This was not a game for Jalen Gilbo because of size. And that's that good pickup there and not in insight for people that didn't see that.
And then I'm going to group these two together, guys, because it's about Matthew Golden. We'll start with Brett here. He says Matthew Golden's high point hands and control on the sidelines and the end zone look like prime Dez Bryant. He's going to have a big game next Friday. And then Chris says Golden got screwed because he should have been the offensive MVP.
He's got to have a big game next Friday. That's the first thing. He's got to. But yeah, I mean, look, the crazy thing is if you saw him in high school, you just knew what he could become as he got stronger and built out his frame. And the other crazy thing is a lot of people, if you don't follow recruiting closely, Texas offered him late, but it was too late, and he had already made his decision, and he kind of was, how kids wanted the offer early and don't get it, and then they kind of brush you off when you come back and offer. But he's always had it in. The Klein came. The crazy thing is when I go by there, him, Jaden Blue, and that third guy over there that was a Division I player. I always ask, who's your best player? They're like, Matthew Golden's best player. And Matthew Golden has turned into just a tremendous player. Got great body control, toughness. The thing we've talked about all season too, he's played the most snaps of any receiver. So as a guy who transferred in, Bobby, Sark fully trusts him in his scheme. Completely trusts him in his scheme. He's played more snaps than any other receiver.
I think coming from Dana Holgerson's pass-happy system helped him adapt to Sark's. Whereas Isaiah Bond in formerly the Alabama system, not so much. more of a learning curve, right? For Isaiah Bond. I will add this, Gary Stoken, who is the Peach Bowl director, who we had on this show last week. He awarded the offensive MVP to Cam Scatterbo. But in that conversation, he said this was voted on with 7 minutes left to go in the game.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that was Gary's way of saying, we might have revoted after the second overtime. But there you go. I don't have a problem with them giving it to Scatterbo, because the only thing I cared about, and I said this pregame, was I don't care if Texas wins by 1 or by 30. I just care that Texas wins. And so I don't care if Matthew Golden gets the MVP award or Cam Scatterbo. I just care that Texas won, period. So look, Cam Scatterbo is a deserving player. Good for him. But frankly, Matthew Golden will probably end up in the Peach Bowl Hall of Fame. Just going to say that. Jimbo Fisher I don't know if y'all saw this, by the way.
Yeah. Hook him, Jimbo. Hook him.
Yeah, Jimbo Fisher got caught doing a hook 'em by a fan, I think, on the sidelines. Jimbo Fisher was, I was at the game yesterday. He was inducted into the Peach Bowl Hall of Fame. And when his name was called out, Texas fans booed. Texas fans booed very loudly. So he was clearly not a guy that Texas fans wanted to hear from, but he took it in good.
Will A&M not cut him his next alimony check because of that hook 'em?
Yeah, conduct unbecoming of $75 million.
A&M wasn't happy with that one.
They can't fire him any more than they already did. I don't think.
All right, we're going to get to some more super chats. I'm going to group these two together. Rich Thompson says, the thought struck me. This college football playoff format is a juggernaut on excitement, on viewership, on money. And then it struck me. Can you imagine if we followed every other sport and had this all our lives? It's absolutely amazing. And then KD35, I am the best, comes back and says, yes, Ohio State is good, but was Tennessee and Oregon overrated or just that bad? Both look like deer in the headlights, or maybe a little of both.
Well, they made Tennessee look bad, and they made Oregon look bad. So to that point, I think Ohio State's peaking at the right time. Maybe the Michigan loss called out their manhood a little bit, and that's got them playing at a high level. I would say, as far as the college football playoff format, I love it personally. It has been, when I was growing up, I loved the NCAA basketball tournament, right? And I think a tournament format in football has been the exclusive domain, really, of high school football and the NFL. College football's never really had it. A 4-team playoff is not the same. You start adding more teams to this, they get it up to 16. It'll be interesting. The one thing I did not like, I will say this about being at the Peach Bowl yesterday, Texas fans travel extremely well compared to other teams across the country. When Arizona State had that bye, they clearly had people planning their New Year's plans around this for 3 and 4 weeks, whereas Texas had 10 days or 8 days. And it made the tickets more expensive to get to Georgia. The hotels more expensive, etc. So that was one thing that I would say. I will add this, and I'll say it till the cows come home. Texas fans need to show up to AT&T. Texas deserves to make this feel like a home game against Ohio State, and they're going to need it. Okay, there needs to be 4 or 5 false starts by Ohio State, because that game, I can tell you right now, there were even numbers of fans in the Rose Bowl. Ohio State enjoyed an advantage against Tennessee in that first round playoff game. Texas needs to make Ohio State come into a Texas stadium and beat Texas.
And I'm saying this to remind myself, it's going to be really cold next week, so bring your parkas. So I'm just saying that there, Bobby, we have we're going to have a live stream outside the stadium, and it's going to be in the 30s or 40s again. So we're ready. Hey, by the way,
Well, I'm looking right now. You're lying to me. Please tell me you're lying.
no, not at all.
Mm.
Even the high of 38, maybe on Wednesday or Thursday.
I thought that was Tuesday.
Maybe is it Tuesday or Wednesday?
I thought so.
In the 40s, late next week for the high. Yeah. Hey, by the way, this is why I think college football is in the best place it's ever been. And I know the seeding's all jacked up in the tournament right now. We're headed to 16 teams eventually, which is what it needs to be. Because Boise State fans, Arizona State fans, think about all the fans that had hope. They had never had hope before. But we're now a Notre Dame win over Georgia from not having a top 4 seed in the semifinal.
There you go.
5, Texas 5. I know the seedings are jacked up. But that also tells you somebody that will win the national. If Georgia gets upset today, somebody will win a national championship this year that potentially would not have been in a 14 playoff. Potentially. Because all 4 of if Notre Dame wins today, no chance all 4 of the teams remaining would have been in a 14 playoff. Maybe 1 would have, maybe 2, but not 4.
That's fair. Good point, Jerry. Really good point.
Brian says the Big 12 wanted that win so bad, the dream is crushed.
Yeah, I'm sure Brett Yormark, quietly wept and just said, "Yep, it still runs through Lubbock. The Big 12 still runs through Lubbock."
And
eat a lot of Taco Bell.
Oh gosh. Let's see here. Ito says one conference champ, the left standing until this afternoon. Texas is beat 2. Hook 'em. Seating aside, did the college football playoff get it right?
Oh, I think so.
Yeah.
I was not one of those guys that said South Carolina or Ole Miss or Alabama had to be in or should have been in. I know, Jerry, you were making a case for South Carolina
over Indiana,
where they lost Raheem Sanders and those guys. I don't think it was egregious for sure, and so I don't have a problem with it. I think that the best team will win this national championship, most likely, whoever that is.
Yeah. And Bobby, this courtesy of your wife, we're going to go back to it here for a second. Jimbo Fisher throwing the hook 'em.
He's a happy guy. He didn't have to coach the Aggies,
yeah.
And still has $75 million in his pocket.
Mm.
You like that, Jerry? What do you think?
Well, like somebody else in the super chat and chat, guys, I agree with them. Congrats on Jimbo for appearing in a second college football playoff and his first in the 12 team.
I got to say this. People don't realize this. Jimbo Fisher was somewhat close to being the head coach of the University of Texas at one point.
Yeah.
People don't realize that until the folks from Korn Ferry kind of stood on the table and said no as a advice against Jimbo Fisher. Fisher was playing for a national championship. Had he won that national championship, or after that national championship game, he was very, very interested in taking the Texas job instead of Charlie Strong. Texas went ahead and made a move before then to take Charlie Strong.
There you go. Katie with yet another super chat says Jimbo made it to the college football playoff before the Aggie. All right, Michael.
Do they fill in that plaque now at A&M?
Maybe
2025.
Michael, and I think he put this up when Coach Fazell was here. So sorry, Michael. He says maybe Coach can speak to this, but we fans will always be emotional. Saying bench this player, fire that coach. The most important thing is the locker room and the team. Hook 'em.
Great point. I mean, I agree with that. I mean, we've never called for the benching of Quinn Ewers, though. I just want to say that. We've never called for the benching of, I don't know, of any player. The question, I'm not even suggesting they bench Bert Auburn. I'm suggesting they open it up and see who wins it in practice. That's all I'm suggesting.
Yeah.
That being said, I go back to this, and this has been an hour and 30-minute show so far, Jerry and Blake. I think we need to go back to the start and just tell people how we feel. And that's that, you know what? It's a hell of a lot better waking up a winner than a loser. I mean, that would not have been the way you want to start 2025. And I also want to say this, and I mentioned it very early. I think that this 4th and 13 pass, goes down in Texas football history as one of the biggest passes, most meaningful passes in Texas football. I mean, you have, and we talked about it, you had Street to Preschel in 1969. You had James Brown to Derek Lewis in 1996 for the Big 12 championship, roll left. You had Lima Swede in the horseshoe from Vince Young. Quan Cosby, pass and catch from Colt McCoy to win the Fiesta Bowl. I think there have been a number of them. But this one, it cements, and I can't tell you how much people have been wondering what Quinn's legacy has been. That's been like a subplot for the last month, Jerry.
Yeah.
Well, now he has a play to call his own. That will cement his legacy. Now people will be talking about him as the third best quarterback in the modern era to play at Texas, behind VY and Colt. I already thought he was there. Now there's not going to be a question that he's there, in my opinion.
Yeah. And look, to your point,
and if he goes further, let's see.
To your point on, look, this was a huge win when you look at from a program standpoint moving forward. If you get into a game and Ohio State's a better team, if they're just a better team in the semifinals, you tip your cap and you move on, right? But this is a game that, that was Arizona State on the other sideline. And you're up 24-8. No matter how it went before that, that's what people will remember. So that would have been a rough one for Sark for the whole offseason heading into next year. That's one that, like you said, Bobby, that doesn't really leave. That sticks. So that was huge. But from a program standpoint, the one thing I want to say too is I always say, remember these kids, all the kids Texas recruiting, they see it so differently because they don't ride the wave of emotion like we all do. They saw an unbelievable game. They could point to some things, man, should this pass have been made? Should that play call? What about that tackle? Blah, blah, blah. Penalty. Yeah, but they don't ride the wave of emotion. They saw a hell of a game, and they saw Texas win again in a college football playoff and kind of cement themselves as a team that's continuing to ascend in college football with guys that high school recruit, the National Defensive Player of the Year, Colin Simmons, making a sack. Right, you see transfer portal guys, Trey Moore 2 sacks, Matthew Golden. We've talked about all those guys, the transfer players making plays in this. Andrew Makuba. You saw Jade Barron, a high school recruit. That you see the success of these players from different avenues. A 3-star high school recruit, Barron, a 5-star that ends up being a national freshman of the year. 2-3 transfers making huge plays in that game for Texas. You win that game. They see it differently. That's a big game for Texas to win.
All right. Here we got a lot more super chats to get to, guys. And going back to just a second ago about, where that pass ranks. Naaman says yours pass is number 1. This is a chance for a championship. All the other throws in history were for bowl wins or rivalry games.
The Street to Pesto was not. They won the national championship based off of that pass on a 4th and 2. And the Lima Swede, I mean, that vaulted Texas into a definitive spot in the national championship game, essentially.
Well, if Texas had lost the Ohio State game, would they have been in the title game?
No. Ohio State would have been.
Yeah. By the way, somebody, I think it's Juju Juice keeps bringing it up. Another week for the old early enroll or the guys, the early enrollees that are there. More practice time with Texas. Kenny Baker, Brad Spence learning the scheme at linebacker. Great point. The early enrollees live to practice another day.
All right, you're watching Coffee and Football presented by Rick Valvo and Austin Underground. Also want to give a big thanks once again to Duck Camp as well for sponsoring all throughout the college football playoff in Texas run to hopefully the national championship. Let's start with V Brown here. Good morning, fellas. I'd like to visit B Rob's question last night about 2024 offense being better than the 2023 offense. Are you sure?
I'm not. And I, we didn't have enough time to really get into that yesterday. I think that Xavier Worthy he was a game changer for Sark. Because I mean, he was like the ultimate toy in his system. I don't know that that Texas has that this year. Like they have a reasonable approximation now of Adonai Mitchell in Matthew Golden. But who's the toy that's like Xavier Worthy? That's a big play waiting to I don't see that. Isaiah Bond hasn't developed into that. Now it could be because of injury. But Xavier Worthy was healthy all last year.
That was my take. I mean, look, last year was a much healthier offense. You had Worthy and Mitchell all year. You had Whittington all year who'd been injury prone. You didn't lose Jonathan Brooks till late in the year. This team has had the offensively, especially, I mean, you lost your starting running back, an second team all SEC pick preseason before the season started. Isaiah Bond hasn't been healthy since the OU game. And he was on crazy to look at this, but before that injury, he was actually on pace for a 1,000-yard season, thinking Texas was going to play a 13 or 14 game season. He was averaging about 71, 72 yards a game. So he'd have been right there on that average, but they've had to play through more injury. Last year, the offensive line played all the way through. This year, you lost Kelvin Banks. You've lost Cam Williams. So they've had to deal with more this year. So I'm not even sure I can compare it because of injury. But I agree on Worthy for sure.
We got a super chat here from Guy, and he says Malik Muhammad and Bert Auburn will be our Achilles heel next week. Muhammad has been exposed the last 2 weeks.
Confidence
Rod said his
fragile.
Yeah, confidence is fragile. Jerry's right. Rod in last night's post game said that Muhammad's technique on the halfback pass was just bad. And look, it's happened against Clemson, and now it happened against Arizona State. And so that's something to watch. Meanwhile, Gavin Holmes actually has played well. And I will say this, they may put more speed on the field with Gavin Holmes against Ohio State. So I would not be surprised. I'm not saying Manny Muhammad's going to have limited snaps or anything like that. I just think that against Ohio State and Jeremiah Smith, you got to have speed on the field and length. So maybe we'll see a little bit of that from Gavin Holmes.
Jeff Carey, Arizona State had better coaching, better execution, more desire, but Quinn played like Superman the first quarter and first and last 5 minutes. Excuse me. If we play at this level next game, we will get crushed.
I'm not predicting what will happen. I will say this. They are down. It's going to be down to 4 teams in college football playoff. Anybody saying Ohio State's going to crush Texas is full of you-know-what. Anybody saying Texas will crush Ohio State is full of you-know-what. We don't know. We're now down to the very end. And these games depend on weird bounces, turnovers, things that sometimes just making plays in crucial moments. Rod talked about it, the clutch gene. That's what these games will come down to. I think that saying that we're definitively going to win or lose or what have you, I think that now we're down to the Final Four. It's how you play and what you put out on the field, the product you put out there.
And let's dig a little deeper into that with this comment here from Seth, or question from Seth. He says, it feels like our defense can match up with Ohio State if they game plan for Smith to hold him at 100 yards or less. But what about our offense? Do you think it's a bad matchup personnel-wise outside of the 3-high scheme?
I don't think it's great. I'll say that because Ohio State, I think, is second best front seven that Georgia, Texas has played this year with tremendous secondary behind it. I mean, the safeties, Downs and Ransom are great players in college football as a safety tandem. I mean, they're just tremendous. Big, physical, run, coverage, all of it. So it's not like we talked about, I'd rather play to Oregon than Ohio State, because Ohio State's can do they have the personnel to do what Georgia did? Well, Arizona State just pulled it off on defense. I didn't think they could. Ohio State's got better personnel. Can they pull it off? They also can rush the passer with both of their edges, JT and the other end. I can't remember his name right now. Drew blank. Sawyer. Yep. And then they have interior guys. I mean, Tyleik Williams is a projected first, second rounder. There's 11 upperclassmen on defense. Downs is the only sophomore. Everybody else is a junior or senior that started yesterday. So, that is a tougher matchup for the Texas offense, obviously, than Oregon would have been. Because we talked about how Oregon defensively had issues, and that popped up yesterday. Oregon ends the season giving up 30 to every team that is in the college football playoffs they played. And that counts Ohio State twice.
Yeah, I don't think Texas is a great matchup for Ohio State, but I also think that, look, Ohio State is one of those teams that is more likely to play Texas straight up. Right, Jerry? And you can plan for that if you're Sark. You can game plan for that and have some reasonable opinions of how it will look. I think, and so I think Sark will have a better game plan. Whereas I thought, I don't think we're going to see an 8-man box by Ohio State against Texas. We saw an 8-man box at times for Arizona State. So that part of it, I think, being more predictable will be helpful for Texas and for Sark as a play caller. Go back to that real quick, if you don't mind. That saying I misrepresented that comment. I want to make sure I'm not. Bobby misrepresented my comment. I said if we play at the same level as ASU, we will get crushed. Okay, I apologize, Jeff. If I misread it or something. I would tell you that even that's the case, Texas can't miss 2 field goals and throw an interception with 5 minutes left and expect to win. But I'm telling you, we're down to this every man for himself type mentality. It's survive and advance. And however you do it, you do it. And that'll be the team that ultimately wins. It won't be the prettiest team at the dance or prettiest girl at the dance that wins. It'll be the one that survives.
Let's see here. Our next one, guys, comes from Mamba P. How much do you think this process is mental? We seem to be in our own way more often than not. Sark and the team are constantly processing adversity.
Jerry,
I had to be on mute because the dog was barking, and no, it's not my feeder tire.
That was the quietest this has ever been.
Yeah, it's not my feeder tire. The dog was barking. Okay, I think a lot of this is mental. And look, it's going to be mental for Will Howard next week. It's going to be. You think it's not mental right now and I know we're talking about Sark in Texas, but you think it's not mental right now for Georgia and Notre Dame going into this game today because of circumstances? I mean, it's not 80% mental like golf, right? But it's up there. The one thing I would say is what happened with Quinn yesterday. His team fully believes, right? Fully believes. Those things, that's the mental positive from some mental negatives in that game yesterday. They got to get Burt with some mental positives this week. I mean, I just haven't kicking 25-yarders down the middle all week. I would never let him see a miss in the next 7 days. I mean, that's just me. I wouldn't let him see a miss. And I know, you got to work on things. They need positive. They need positive frameworks for guys that are having a hard time finding positive framework. But I think mentally, The crazy thing is, the reality is if you're on the field for 97 snaps against Ohio State, you're 99.9% chance you're not going to win that game, right? But your defense just can say, we survived 97 snaps, or actually it's over 100 counting penalties, like Rod said. Totally agree. Over 100 snaps and found a way to win a game. How many defenses have survived 100 snaps and won a game? That had 38, that gave up 38 minutes of time of possession to 22 minutes and won a game. So it's just drawing positives on it. I do think it's a huge mental right now. And look, you may come up against somebody that plays better than you, tip your cap, and you cry in the locker room, you talk about it in the press conference, and you move on with fuel for next year if it happens. But I do think at this point it's mental for all these teams. You know what? You don't think it's mental for James Franklin getting over the hump of what people have always said about James Franklin? You think it wasn't mental for Ryan Day after the Michigan game? Because the reality for him is, if he had lost in the first round, Ohio State fans would have been calling for his head. I mean, I think it's mental for all of them, and it's a big part of it. I mean, the one thing I give Scadabo so much credit for, and Levitt, is, man, especially Scadabo, that guy has some serious intestinal fortitude. Serious. Like, it was so impressive to watch him in that game yesterday. Just, that was one of the more impressive intestinal fortitude performances I've seen in college sports in a while. It was up there.
Our next one, I'm going to do a couple of these together, guys, because I feel like they all kind of flow together here. We're going to start with John W. He says, great win over a well-prepared, scrappy team. Seems like either Sark or Quinn tried forcing a few throws to Bond deep. Why not more Wingo instead? But then Longhorn Nation says, I think Quinn's main issue with the deep balls is he floats it too much. Sometimes you just got to drive it in like he did to Golden in overtime. And then finally, Nathaniel follows that up with Bond, saying that Bond can't high point a ball. He stumbled on both picks.
He is more of a run and catch receiver than a high point guy. That doesn't mean Michigan, he made the play in the bread basket, but he is not a guy that you're going to be running back shoulders to and tell him to go up in the air and snatch it against a 6'1" corner. To that point, he's more of a run and catch guy that will make the downfield throw, but not the leave 2 feet high point play. That's not really his ever been his game to that point, Bobby.
Just want to say, when the game was on the line, who was in?
Yeah.
Ryan Wingo, DeAndre Moore, and Matthew Golden. I'm not so sure, based on his injury right now, or even just him as a player right now, that Ryan Wingo hasn't passed him up. I'm just going to say that. Because I think Ryan Wingo gives you more mismatch on the outside, one-on-one jump ball type situation. He's bigger. He's a better blocker. Reasonable speed comparatively. And he's played now 15 college football games. He's not a freshman anymore. So we'll see what happens and see how Sark plays that. I will agree. I don't like Quinn floating the ball instead of driving it. He's clearly a better thrower when he drives it deep. Now, the over the middle stuff, or the little feathered throw that he makes to the outside sometimes, is gorgeous. I'm talking about deep, his deep ball. You mentioned John W. talked about Arizona State being a scrappy team. That's what we meant. I think Jerry and I both meant earlier when we compared Arizona State to a NCAA March Madness team that has a couple of players and then a collection of guys around them that are playing at their very highest level and are well coached.
Yeah.
And they're throwing everything at them you got. That's what happened on Saturday or yesterday. I mean, a fake punt, right? A halfback pass, a running back that, put on a cape, a quarterback that was kind of the slippery point guard. That's what we saw, and then you had the internal mistakes that Texas made, the interception, the 2 missed field goals. Texas almost fumbled. They basically almost fumbled the game away and then came back and won it. So, yeah, I mean, Arizona State, absolutely scrappy team. I think the right team won that game. They want it on the field of play. So that's how it goes.
Cade Miller says we have to stop running the ball side to side, run north and south. That's our running problem. But Roy also wants to know, guys, how much did we miss Cam Williams in the run game?
It's a good question because he moves. You talk about getting to a landmark first. Cam Williams moves people off landmarks.
Yeah.
Jerry. And Cade, you can't move side. Texas' outside zone has worked. It's what they ran against Clemson to such success. So you can't just say it's one thing or another. I think it's predicated, on who you're playing and what they can and can't defend. Do I think ultimately Texas should have went more inside against Arizona State? Yes, but Arizona State was loading the box, guys. They were putting 7 and 8 men in the box all game long. So I think that, Texas did what it could. Probably should have scored more points and moved the ball more effectively. When I think if there's one thing in a critique I have of Sark in that game is he didn't throw to the backs out of the backfield nearly enough in early downs to get Texas into 2nd and 4, 2nd and 5. Instead, he kept trying the outside zone after it was clear Arizona State was stopping it, or running up the middle against a heavy front. So get the extended handoffs. When they did that, Texas started moving the ball in the 4th quarter.
Agree.
All right. Speaking of Sark, we have a few people with some concerns here, and we're going to start with Jesus, who says, I'm concerned with Sark's ability to prepare for big games, especially the physicality at overtime. How many times this year have we kept teams close that we should demolish? But Jesse wants to know, do you think that we need a true OC that's his only job? Seems the staff is spread thin on offense, too much disorganization on offense. Is he off base?
What disorganization do you see on offense? Would be my first question, Jesse. Like, I don't see disorganization. Like the false starts are more internal issues. That's not disorganization. And I think, look, Sark's a great play caller. You need the offensive line. I didn't see disorganization on the offensive line.
No, I'm sorry, Bobby, real quick. Jesus is the one that says the physicality at the offensive line. Yeah. And then Jesse is the one that's talking about.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I wanted to put that up there for clarification for Jesus' comment, but the disorganizations.
Yeah. You have anything to add?
Well, the one thing I'll say about offensive line is if you run a zone, if you're more of a zone scheme team, and somebody beats you to your landmarks, they're going to look more physical at times. But I don't think Texas didn't play a physical game up front necessarily. I'm not going to say that they pass pro'd well when they had to against 6-man pressures. They did a lot of things too in that game. I think sometimes if you're a zone team and you run a lot of wide and outside zone, if guys are beating you to your landmarks, they can appear to win physically, but that doesn't mean you're not physical at the same time. I mean, I don't think you walk into College Station and run the ball for 250 yards if you're not physical. Run the ball for 300 yards against Clemson if you're not physical. I do think, I think you're playing other good players at times. I mean, Georgia is extremely, extremely physical in their front seven. So they more physical probably than Texas was in those two matchups in the front seven in the run game. I think it's also the type of run game you have. It can make you appear not physical, but that doesn't mean you aren't a physical player.
And stayed on the O-line and Sark for a minute. Slick Rick says, if I'm Sark, I'm not happy about this win. We showed resilience at the end, and I get it, but we played arguably our worst game. How can our O-line get bullied and us have 9 penalties in the second half? This was an embarrassing win.
Not for me. I'm just different than y'all this morning. I woke up a very happy camper.
Can I change it around?
Did y'all not wake up? Like, I'm serious now. I get the critique. I do, Slick Rick, and I'm not, and others. I get the critique. Did y'all not wake up happy? I mean,
look,
yeah,
happy to see
final in Texas found a way to win.
Yeah. So here's my thing. I think bring the question back up, Blake, so I don't say this wrong.
Oh gosh,
I know you will.
You're gonna have to give me a minute.
No, you're good. So I think it just would have been. I think it would have been a bad loss, is what I think it would have been. All wins are great. I mean, it doesn't mean the game within the game is great, and it doesn't mean Sark didn't have a ton of teaching points coming up. They had teaching points after the Clemson game defensively. But I think, okay, I'm happy with the win. It would have been a brutal loss, though. That I wanted to make sure I saw what he said.
You're right. I agree.
It would have been a brutal loss because this isn't disrespect, but it still has Arizona State on the helmets. That would have been a bad loss because you were a 2-touchdown favorite. And that would have been talked about for a long time, right? That's what happens in those games, right? I mean, think about, I hate that it's basketball term, but think about Tony Bennett, who's the first one to ever lose to a 16. And I'm not saying they were 16, but this is what happens in tournaments now, that you can take some bad losses that will sting and linger. And I can't imagine this chat for 7 months if that would have been the way the season ended. But I'm very happy with the win because you get a chance to go play, I think, a tremendous Ohio State team for the right to play for all the marbles. But I think it would have been a bad loss. I will say that. I think it would have been a slightly embarrassing loss.
It's not an embarrassing win, though. No. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. You're in the national semifinals.
And Lando Griffin said, imagine being Oregon this morning. Go undefeated all the way through, and you're down 34-0 with 2 minutes to go in the first half. Hey, by the way, we haven't hit on that, and we don't have – well, I know we got to get out of here, but what's interesting is the three teams, we'll see what Georgia does here today. The three teams that had the week off all lost. But it's different. Because one of the things that Arizona State-Texas game coming out was Arizona State had 20 days to prepare for Texas. Oregon had 20 days to prepare for Ohio State, and they're down 34-0. Boise had 20 days to prepare for Penn State, and did you ever really think they were in the game? So, I mean, I don't think that's the thing. Oh, you got 20 days off, so you're better prepared. Well, maybe the book says you should, but Oregon got dog walked, I mean, in the first half of that game too. So I'm not sure there's a concrete thing, but I do know this. Unless Georgia wins today, the three teams that had the off week to start this playoff are all out.
We're going to switch gears here for a moment. We've talked about the win and Sark and the O-line, but let's look behind the scenes. John Butler says, congratulations to recruiting coordinator Brandon Harris for putting this team together. Sark noted the kind of team he wanted, and the recruiting delivered. Hook 'em.
Yeah, absolutely. Brandon, now the director of player personnel, general manager for Texas football. He's been with Sark from the very outset. He actually is not a layover. What do you call it? He actually stayed after Tom Herman was fired and has adapted to what Steve Sarkisian wanted. Thank you, Professor Butler, for the super chat as well. Jerry, we should take this time to talk a little bit about recruiting also, because there is some stuff going on behind the scenes with portal guys right now, some of which we can't really relay to you guys yet. There are a couple guys that are in the portal that Texas has some interest in. Hopefully we can let you guys know a little bit more in the next 24 hours or so. Is that right, Jerry? Is that what we're thinking?
Well, yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Sark brings in any visitors this week, potentially. I mean, this is maybe over the weekend, but it's not like a regular game week, though, because you play on a Friday. So will you bring in any portal visitors? We'll see here in probably the next 24 hours if that happens. But it's a shorter week in terms of you bring an official visitor in on the weekend, but Sunday that's really going to start your game week to me a day early, right, Bobby? So it'll be interesting to see what Texas does. Obviously, the team still playing is where you want to be from a portal recruiting standpoint. Maybe a slight disadvantage just because how many guys do you want to bring in right now when you're competing for a national championship?
Yeah, it's tough, right? You got to figure it out. I want to say this one thing more about John Sibley John Butler's comment. The thing that was struck, one of the things that I saw Brandon Harris do yesterday. So I've met Brandon and I know what he, all this other stuff. He was the first person to congratulate A.D. Mitchell on the sideline of that TCU catch, Jerry, last year. You remember you seeing that?
Yeah.
He was also the first one to congratulate Andrew Makuba. He was the first coach out there. Brandon likes to get involved a little bit for his guys. So good stuff there.
All right, we got more super chats, fellas. Going a little long today. That's all right. Keith Keeney says 4th and 13 when I rewatched 10 times. I still have no idea how Arizona State didn't get through. The offensive line stonewall when they had to have it, and Quinn's ice cold throw.
They talked a couple things. One, they talked in the post game. Sark did explicitly about how Quinn changed protection. And then Brian Robeson said, not only did they change protection, but every single person did their job. He said that was as good as pass protections as you could possibly get, given the situation. Gunnar Helm picked up a guy on a phantom blitz kind of. Trey Wisner stuck his nose in there. It was an ice cold throw. It was a tremendous route from Matthew Golden. If you go back and watch it, he sold the out so hard. That guy nearly turned his hips. So that's it. We aren't talking about Kurt Quinn's run on 3rd down for a TD enough. We needed that badly from Forrest Eldridge. I agree with that as well, because he actually maneuvered and manipulated the pocket the right way, Jerry. He didn't escape too soon. He sat in there, and then he let it kind of bleed out, and that's when he did it. Forrest, you're right. That was a good play because that put Texas back. That's the one that put Texas up by 16, and I thought at that time it was an insurmountable lead. We were wrong.
And Edward says we score a touchdown and made it 23-8. Do you kick an extra point or go for 2 and make it a 3-possession game? Also, what do you think of Quinn's performance in clutch time does for his confidence and the team's confidence in him?
Well, we talked about that, so I think it does great. If there were anybody on the team that needed to see him make the throw in the crunch time when it counted, they saw it, right? So that's great. We talked about hit on that earlier. That's an interesting one, the 23-8, because we heard it both ways in our chats going back and forth during the game and on the watch with us, which I think went over 200,000 views. Thanks to all you guys and any of the A&M fans out there who joined in to heckle. Bobby, that was a tough one because I get the kick. I get kicking it to make it 24-16.
You mean 24-8? Yeah,
24-8. Sorry, and I get the people that say, "Wait, 2 points, a 2-point conversion there would have made it a three possession game." I get it both ways. I didn't have a problem with him kicking the PAT to make it 24-8 there.
I didn't either because the Texas defense had been so good. You didn't think that Arizona State would be able to get 2 consecutive PATs, 2-point conversions. Like I understand what they're saying, but I thought it was it would have been. I would have said that would have been tougher for them to accomplish than what it ultimately was. Now maybe a guy was downfield illegally on one of them, but still. I didn't have a problem with it either. The book does say, if you believe in the book, to go for 2 there to make it a 3-score game.
Hey, T Live, we got your super chat, but nothing attached to it. Send it in normal. I'll fix that up for you. So that's not a problem there. Guy, he says, isn't it illegal to pull a player into the end zone the way they did with Scattaboo?
It used to be. It's not anymore, and that's part of the whole Bush push regulation. It used to be illegal for offensive linemen to move people forward without their own help, but now it is not. It's completely legal. Probably when you played football, it was illegal. Now, I think about 5 years ago, Jerry. Does that sound right?
I think so.
Johnny Epp says, I just started betting. Worst mistake I made for the Horns. Never again. Took the over on the backs and under on Quinn's yards. Sorry, Johnny. Never bet on the team that you love the most.
That's the real that because then passion and
Yep.
bias seeps in. That is the ultimate betting advice.
Yeah,
I would say
heart
that.
gets in the way of the brain, Johnny. I promise you. I tell you from experience. All right. Hey, Lee here. Let's be honest. The offense has been up and down almost every game the last 2 seasons. Is this just what a Sark coach unit is going to look like?
Let's see. I mean, I don't know. He still hasn't gotten everything he wants. To be honest. I mean, let's see. I'm if it is, I'm not really concerned with it because they were 12-2 last year and they're currently 13-2 this year. If that's what a Sark offense looks like, as long as he also has a defense and keeps recruiting like this on defense, it's enough to win 12 games a year. That's pretty strong. I hear what you're saying, though. We want more. We want perfection. We want a well-oiled machine. And sometimes it looks like a clunker. And I get it. But I'm not. Today is a day of victory, for me, at least.
And Dwayne says, any ideas why Cole Hudson was playing the second half instead of Campbell? Was Campbell hurt?
No, he came back in overtime. So he returned. They have been subbing in Cole Hudson all season long.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how much y'all kept track of this, but Cole Hudson has played in every single game and not just unmeaningful snaps. So they'll bring him in the second quarter, third quarter. He's played in fourth quarters with the game on the line. They see Cole Hudson as a sixth starter, in my opinion. And they make sure he gets time in every single game. So, and I do think that Cole and DJ have somewhat different strengths. They're both really good run blockers, in my opinion. That's their calling card. Cole's a little more exacting, and I'll try to say this the right way, with his knowledge of the scheme and the system, because he started as a true freshman, so he gets it mentally. DJ has shown some issues with that from time to time. At the same time, when DJ gets a hold of you,
over.
Watch out. So Kyle Flood's getting those guys both time and doing it, interspersing that.
And then this next one, T-Live still needs your comment. Haven't seen it in the chat. Maybe I've missed it, but I don't think so. Let's see. No, we did that one. Ashley, excuse me. Ashley says, as someone who's had a concussion, I'm surprised they let Scattaboo back in the game. He wasn't sick.
I was wondering about that during the game too. But if you listen to the post game, it's on our YouTube. The post game of Dillingham and Sam Levitt and Scatabo. Didn't sound like a guy that was concussed to me. Maybe he said he felt bad. He said he drank too much water, was puking. I know he shakes his head. He always does that. For people that saw that, if they're thinking of something with that, but he always does that. I talked to somebody about that because I was wondering, and I asked somebody in the Tempe area a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. They're like, no, that's what he always does. It's something with a helmet. He feels like he's more focused that way. It's nothing medical that he deals with or anything like that. But in the press conference, I mean, I'm not sitting there. I'm not the doctor, but he didn't sound like it to me.
Kitty Dillingham had the best quote, Ashley. He said, puke and rally. A total night out was the comment, basically. Puke and rally. So they got him back in. He said he felt waterlogged, basically, which is when you take in too much water too quickly, probably because he was a little scared that he was going to be dehydrated or starting to have cramps. So he took in a lot of water.
And then Jeff Carey, thank you again, Jeff. Appreciate your super chat. He says Sark is horrible at halftime adjustment or no adjustments. That's why we are horrible in the third quarter. He needs help. Ohio State will bury us in the third quarter.
I mean, look, I expected in the third quarter to come out and actually run the ball on first down to get to a 2nd and 7, 2nd and 8, right? I didn't really expect the play action turn the back to the defense right out of the gate in the third quarter. So, I mean, one of the things I thought Arizona State did that was so did well. And Dillingham, like he was press conference, he's putting it all on him for the loss, which I think the guy's done a great job and did a good job in that game as well. But I get it. These guys coach to perfection, right? And we talk about it. We want to see it happen. Is living with second and eights, living with some second and nines.
And then this next one, we're going to stay on Ohio State because we actually have some comments and questions. Corey B, he says, we scored 38 and 39. Ohio State scored 42 and 41. Maybe this game is first to 40 wins. And then he follows that up with, how do you see our defense versus the Ohio State running backs? Woo! Sorry if someone asked, I just got in.
But no, I love their running backs now. I really do. They have a distinct advantage at running back because they are strong. They are fast. They can catch the ball out of the backfield. They can make people miss. Keyshawn Judkins, a transfer from Ole Miss, and Travion Henderson, a young man that's just getting back from injury. Those guys are loads. Ohio State has the best skill position talent left in the college football playoffs.
Easily the best Texas has played this year. Running back, wide receiver, tight end, the combination of all three, easily the best Texas has gone up against this year. Not even close.
And staying on Ohio State a little bit further, guys, HP says, no way we beat them with Quinn or any other quarterback, for that matter, standing in the pocket waiting for a Christmas gift. Or am I off the reservation, he asked.
Well, Texas is going to have to run the ball better against Ohio State. That's the one thing I will say. They have to run the football better against Ohio State. And if that happens, then because they're going to rush the passer. They have guys who can win some one-on-ones. Texas is going to have to run the football better. And I get what you're saying. I hope the pass protection is good enough against Ohio State to where Texas has a chance for their plays to develop.
And a couple more Ohio State ones, fellas. D-Money, can't get money. Thank you for your money. He says, can we all agree that if our offense sputters like yesterday, we'll get blown out by Ohio State? That game will most likely be a track meet.
Look, you have to look. The interesting thing with that game for me will be Texas. It's normally about explosives, right? For Texas, I think it's actually possessing the football, running the football enough to have some drives, to put drives together. For Ohio, and defensively, it's limiting their explosives, whether that's wide receiver or running back. To me, the thing about Ohio State, Bobby, is anybody that's out there, running back or wide receiver, can go make an explosive. Literally anybody they put on the field can. And you didn't have that against Clemson. Their receivers were good, but Maffa was hurt, and he wasn't more of the explosive running back. I mean, Henderson and Judkins can make explosives. All three of their starting receivers can make explosives. Jermaine Smith is an explosive when he wakes up in the morning. So it's like that is going to be limiting explosives for the Texas defense. Offensively, I think you got to mount some drives against these guys. You have to run the football to protect winning this game big time because they can get after it.
Or extensions of running the football.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing that got me about the game plan with Sark.
Right.
He didn't go to the outside passing soon enough. Yep. And because of that, second and third quarters were stinkers on offense.
And T-Live, I got yours now. Thank you for putting that in there for me. Sorry, I didn't see it the first time. He says, I see the Ohio State game a little different. This sets up perfect for Texas. The overtime gave the offense a chance to gain confidence, and I believe our defensive line may be the best unit on the field next week.
I tell you what, if Texas, and this goes back to the other comment as well, if Texas can stop the Ohio State run, it's going to be in Will Howard's hands. And at that point, that's the best anybody can hope for, in my opinion. Because then you give chance for Will Howard to show whether or not he's improved, or he's the same quarterback that might throw 3 touchdowns and 3 interceptions in the same game. Texas does need a score. There's no doubt about that. I would bet the first team to 30 wins the game. Bet pretty strong about that. Y'all mentioned 40. But this is I'll tell you what, guys going into this game expecting it to go a certain way, I think you're going to be surprised, just like we were against Arizona State. Every time people think a game is going to go a certain way for Texas, it goes a different way. I don't know if y'all have noticed that this season. We got to, we're going to go out there and A&M is going to be really hard to run the ball on. They run it for 250. They should run the ball all over Arizona State. Can't run the ball at all. Every game this year, just about, has gone somewhat differently than what you expected it to go. And so all of us prognosticated, myself, Jerry included, having this predetermined idea of how things are going to work. I'm not so sure it's so black and white. I'll just put it that way. This team, this is now, we're in that portion of the year where throw everything out. It's survive and advance. That's what happened on yesterday.
Look, on Ohio State, can they go throw 340s in a row? If they do, you tip your cap and move on, right? I mean, are they going to throw 340? If they do, then you know what? You tip your hat and move on. I mean, to Bobby's point, I mean, they're a hot team right now, but how long are you going to stay hot?
Yeah,
and they're very talented. Don't get me wrong, but all that talent wasn't necessarily hot before the playoffs either. Can you go score 40 3 weeks in a row? Or even if you don't, I'm not saying you have to. Can you have 3 tremendous performances offensively in a row? That's what Ohio State's up against.
I got to say this too about people talking about Sark's play calling. That 4th and 13 was a hell of a play call. The very next play call was that route to Gunnar Helm. Hell of a play call. So don't forget about the good when you remember the bad in that structure, because he did make some good play calls. It was not I will say this. It was not a well-constructed game plan, though. There were hints of greatness in there in those 2 play calls, but there wasn't that consistent game plan that I think worked.
All right, just a couple more here, fellas. This one from Airhelm. Thank you, Airhelm. And he says, have we thought about the irony of viewers facing his old university that he transferred from?
Absolutely. Started his career at Ohio State. May end it against Ohio State if Texas loses. I would also say this. Don't forget about Will Howard having faced Texas twice. I mean, his last time against Texas ended on a goal line stand with 4 shots from the 5-yard line or 6-yard line, whatever it was. So there's a lot of that from both of these quarterbacks that are kind of subplots to what we'll see on January 10th.
Somebody asked him. I wanted to answer. Somebody asked about Jarrett Gibson. Look, I think it's just the ball security. I mean, Jashard Choice talked about him in the video that we have on OTF here on YouTube during media day about him and how where he thinks he can go as a player. But the message I got from that was he's just not quite there yet, not quite ready yet. And I think obviously ball security in these types of games is huge. Didn't see a lot of Jaden Blue either.
But didn't see much of anybody other than, I mean,
he didn't have any plays.
Oh,
I said 21 snaps in the first half.
Yeah.
But no, like to your point though, Blue wasn't incorporated in the passing game, which surprised me. I thought it was a great matchup for Blue in the passing game in this game.
I agree. I like I said, they didn't go to the outside passing game soon enough, in my opinion, for whatever reason.
And Longhorn Nation, thank you for yours. He says, did y'all see how massive Lance Jackson is?
Yeah, he's impressive in person. I mean, he is going to be 6'6", 6'5.5", whatever he is without shoes, official measurement, 275, 280. And think about, remember the pictures, you keep one in your phone of the photos you saw of him this week, and then look at how different he's going to look in August after being as an early enrollee, after having this workout period at Becton, and then after spring practice, the workout period in the summer headed into the season. He's going to be 6'5.5", 275, 280, and be all dude now, all man.
And our last one for today, fellas, this comes from Slick Rick. And Slick Rick, thank you for the super chat. Another super chat. He says, Bobby, stop being soft on our team. I get your point of view. A win is a win. But I'm not happy because we didn't play to our standard, the Texas standard. Nothing happy about beating a less talented team. Stop getting away from the standard.
I don't know about you, but January 10, I'm in Dallas, Rick. So I hear you, but this is the reality of life. You don't always play to your standard. Okay? You just don't. These are 18 to 22-year-olds primarily. If you played to your standard from your ages 18 to 22 every day and were judged by that, I get it. More power to you. But you also have to take the good with the bad, dude. And I'm saying for me, I woke up happy Texas won. Did they play to their standard? No. But that doesn't make me soft on them. I just said they didn't play to their standard. But I'm also not going to whip them because they didn't. You know, Texas came through in the clutch. And I think that's ultimately what I'll remember this game for. Quinn Ewers, you can say what you want. He cemented his legacy with this game. I get you, and I'm not trying to be soft. I'm not trying to talk down to anybody or anything like that either. Texas did not play a great game. Jerry predicted a huge blowout, and rightfully so. I understand it. Okay? But that's not being soft on the team. I mean, there are times when you need a critique, but you're not going to get – I've been around college football too long. You're not going to get the standard every week. You're lucky if you get the standard 2/3 of the year. I mean, you think Ohio State's played to the standard every single week this year? No, they haven't. You think any team left? I mean, has Penn State? No. Has Georgia? No. That's my opinion.
And one more. I didn't realize it until Cody told me in the chat here. Sorry about that, guys. Sorry, Cody. Quinn Ewers threw that ball when Golden was at the 14-yard line. Hook 'em.
Yes. That was – look, he had to throw him open on that play. Quinn had to throw him open on that play. There was no other choice for Quinn in that situation. And Joel Klatt said it on some of his podcasts is he doesn't see Quinn throw enough guys open, more predetermined throws. That was one he had to throw a guy open. And he had to have it, and he had to make the throw. It was a great throw.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for all the super chats, and that's going to do it for today's show. So we want to thank all of you for tuning in, for the great questions, the super chats. Sorry we did not get to all we did all the super chats, but sorry we didn't get to all the questions. Y'all were rolling today in the chat. It was very, very hard to keep up from my standpoint. So thank you all for that. Thanks for tuning in. And I also want to give a big shout out to Duck Camp and Austin Underground as well, because this wouldn't be possible without them. And this wouldn't be possible without you guys for tuning in, and gals. But Bobby, what we got later today?
Jerry and I are grading the team. That will be, Slick Rick, maybe what you want to tune in for, because the grade section is where we get a little bit more detailed in our thought process on the team, I think. Also, Rod Babers and CJ are back on later today with the winning drive. There may be some other media availabilities we're not yet aware of as Texas returns from the Peach Bowl, and we'll see what happens there. Also, Jerry, you're back later this evening with another episode of On Texas Football as well. We got a lot of stuff going on. Of course, this is the time of year. Texas football front and center. May have some recruiting news / portal news later as well. We'll have to wait and see exactly when and what transpires there. But thank you all so much. Thank you also to Rod Babers for stepping in and hanging out with us for a little bit, and Coach Fazell from Gunner, 3-time in a row state champion. That's That's pretty heady stuff, man.
5 overall.
5 overall.
Crazy.
2004. Hey, Jerry. That's pretty rare, by the way. Before we leave, he said he was the DC, and he graduated Texas in 04. It sounded like by 07, he was already the DC at Gunner.
Yeah,
that's a really quick rise for a coach, is it not?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is.
He's done a phenomenal job there. No
Yep.
doubt about it. We'll have to get him back on before the next high school season starts for sure.
Yeah.
So also, guys, if you don't mind, hit that like and subscribe button, ring the bell so you're notified anytime that we go live or post content. And right now, you want to do that. Lots of news going on. As Bobby said, portal, team news, whatever it may be, we got you covered. And we have you covered over at ontexasfootball.com. Sign up and join in on the discussion over there. So don't forget about that. Well, we will be back same time, same place tomorrow. So for Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton, I'm Blake Monroe, and we'll see you then.
Hook 'em.